You're tuned into Biography Radio, where we dive into the most captivating stories of the world's most intriguing figures. Today, we're peeling back the layers of a man whose life might be more fascinating than the roles he's known for. What if I told you that Keanu Reeves, Hollywood beloved action hero, the quiet man behind The Matrix, and John Wick has lived a life that's far from the action-packed movies we've seen? From humble beginnings to becoming an international icon, Keanu's journey has been shaped by deep personal struggles, moments of tragedy, and an unwavering pursuit of authenticity in a world built on illusions. This is the story of Keanu Reeves like you've never heard before. Stay with us as we explore the defining moments of his career, the personal battles that have forged his character, and the quiet strength that has made him an unexpected legend. This is more than just the life of a Hollywood star. This is the life of a man who's navigated fame in ways few can truly understand. All right, let's rewind the clock and head back to where it all began. Keanu Reeves' early life and humble beginnings. Keanu Reeves' story is one that begins in a place most people would never imagine when they think of Hollywood's leading men. Born in Beirut, Lebanon on September 2nd, 1964, Keanu's early years were shaped by a world of uncertainty and political unrest. The city of Beirut, during the time of his birth, was in the midst of the Lebanese Civil War, a period marked by violence and instability that would have a lasting impact on its residents. Keanu's parents, Samuel Nowlin Reeves and Patricia Taylor, were both far from home when Keanu was born, with Samuel coming from Hawaii and Patricia hailing from England. The chaos of Beirut's civil war meant that Keanu's parents didn't have the kind of stable home life they would have hoped for, and as a result, the family life was fragile from the start. Keanu's father, Samuel, was a geologist who had come to Lebanon for work, but his marriage to Patricia was short-lived. When Keanu was only a toddler, Samuel left, leaving Patricia to raise Keanu on her own. This early absence of a father figure would profoundly affect Keanu's childhood, but also introduce him to the strength and resilience of his mother, Patricia. Patricia, an artist and costume designer, was a driving force behind Keanu's early upbringing. As a single mother, she juggled various roles, working hard to support her son, while also encouraging his early interest in the arts. Though their life was often challenging, marked by financial instability and the struggle of living in a foreign country, Keanu's relationship with his mother would serve as a steady anchor in his life, even as they moved from place to place. When Keanu was just a few years old, Patricia made the decision to move with him to Toronto, Canada. This shift was a pivotal moment for both Keanu and his mother, as they left behind the chaos of Beirut and began a new chapter in a completely different environment. Toronto at the time was a city of promise and new opportunities, though it presented its own challenges for a young boy trying to find his way in a new culture. For Keanu, the move to Toronto marked the beginning of a period of frequent relocations. The family lived in a variety of places, never quite settled for long in one home. It was an unstable existence, but one that would shape Keanu in ways that he would later come to understand. The constant moving meant that Keanu had to adapt quickly to new environments, new schools, and new friends. He became accustomed to being the new kid, a position that gave him a sense of alienation at times, but also allowed him to develop a unique perspective on the world around him. Though Keanu struggled with the upheaval of frequent moves, Toronto became a home for him, a place where his mother continued to work in the arts and where Keanu began to find his own way. He would later reflect on these years as formative, even though they were often difficult. The combination of the cultural shift from Beirut to Canada and the pressure of constant relocation gave Keanu a sense of resilience, and as a result, he learned early on how to navigate change and adapt to new situations. Keanu's family background is an interesting mix of cultures, which gave him a unique perspective on life. His mother, Patricia Taylor, was an Englishwoman who worked as a costume designer and later as a writer. Growing up, Keanu was exposed to the world of performance and creativity, as his mother often brought him along to theater productions and other artistic events. Patricia's work in theater meant that Keanu's early life was infused with love for the arts, a world where creativity and expression were celebrated. Though Patricia raised Keanu largely on her own, she wasn't without support. Keanu had a number of stepfathers throughout his early years, though none of them remained in his life for long. Still, Despite the absence of a permanent father figure, Keanu learned valuable lessons from people around him, including his stepfathers. But it was Patricia's influence that would prove to be the most profound in shaping Keanu's identity. Keanu has often spoken fondly of his mother's influence, calling her a strong, independent woman who showed him the importance of resilience and creative freedom. Patricia's own work ethic and passion for the arts would come to define much of Keanu's early character. It was from her that Keanu inherited his love for performance and his sense of determination. Keanu Reeves' early life was far from easy. While many of us may be familiar with the confident, poised star who appears on the big screen, the reality of his childhood was much different. Born into a tumultuous world, Keanu's formative years were characterized by frequent moves, uncertainty, and the absence of a stable father figure. But the true heart of his story lies in how he faced those challenges and how they shaped the person he would become. Raised by his mother, Patricia Taylor, Keanu's childhood was a testament to resilience in the face of adversity. Patricia, an English woman who worked as a costume designer and later as a writer, became the sole caretaker of Keanu after his father, Samuel Nowlin Reeves, left when Keanu was just a toddler. This absence of a father figure left Patricia to navigate the complexities of single parenthood while trying to provide the best possible life for her son in an unfamiliar country. Despite the love and dedication Keanu received from Patricia, life as a single mother was not easy. Financial stability was a constant struggle. Patricia worked hard, taking on various jobs in the arts and even in the fashion industry to support herself and her son. But the road was not always smooth, and as Keanu grew older, he witnessed firsthand the difficult realities that came with being raised by a single mother. There were times when they had to rely on the support of others, and times when the weight of their struggles threatened to break them. The constant movement, frequent relocations between cities and homes, was one of the hardest challenges Keanu faced. When he was still a young child, Patricia made the decision to move to Toronto, Canada, in search of a better life. While this move was an important turning point for both Keanu and his mother, it did not mark the end of the instability they would face. Over the years, Keanu found himself living in multiple places, never staying in one location for too long. The transient nature of his childhood meant that Keanu had to constantly adjust to new schools, new neighborhoods, and new people. This constant uprooting created a sense of uncertainty in Keanu's life. Unlike other children who may have had the stability of a permanent home and a consistent group of friends, Keanu had to learn how to adapt to change at a young age. He often found himself feeling like the new kid, someone who was always trying to fit in, trying to find a place where he belonged. His relationships with friends were often fleeting, as he would move before he could build lasting connections. At times, he must have felt a deep sense of isolation. One of the most profound challenges Keanu faced growing up was the absence of a consistent father figure in his life. His father, Samuel Nowlin Reeves, had a troubled relationship with Patricia, and after their separation, he disappeared from Keanu's life. Keanu's relationship with his father remained distant and strained throughout his early years, with Samuel making little effort to stay involved. This left Patricia to raise Keanu on her own, and those she was dedicated providing for him. She could not fill the void left by his father's absence. Keanu has spoken openly about his experience growing up without a father, and the impact it had on his understanding of relationships and family. His mother, Patricia, worked tirelessly to make ends meet, often put her own needs aside to ensure Keanu had everything he needed. While she did her best, Keanu still faced the emotional challenge of being raised without the presence of a male role model. However, Patricia's love and support played a pivotal role in Keanu's development. Despite the financial hardships and the stress of single motherhood, Patricia never let her son feel unwanted or unloved. She made sure that Keanu understood the importance of perseverance, creativity, and independence. While he may have lacked the traditional family structure that many of his peers enjoyed, Keanu learned from Patricia the value of self-reliance and the power of artistic expression. Keanu often speaks fondly of his mother and credits her with shaping his outlook on life. She was the one who introduced him to the world of theater and the arts, taking the plays and encouraging him to express himself creatively. Even though Patricia couldn't always provide the material comforts that other families could offer, she made sure Keanu had a rich emotional and intellectual upbringing. As Keanu continued to grow, the emotional toll of his nomadic lifestyle became increasingly apparent. Constantly moving, he was forced to leave behind friends and familiar surroundings, never staying long enough to create a lasting sense of community. His childhood was marked by a sense of impermanence, and this created feelings of uncertainty and restlessness. At times, Keanu must have questioned where he truly belonged. The instability in his early years may have led Keanu to develop a heightened sense of empathy and understanding for others. As someone who had to continuously adjust to new environments, he learned to observe people more closely, understanding the nuances of human behavior. This ability to connect with others on a deep, emotional level became a key aspect of Keanu's personality as he grew older. Despite the difficulties, Keanu found solace in his mother's unwavering love and her belief in his potential. The bond between mother and son became a source of strength for him as they navigated the challenges of their nomadic existence. Keanu often speaks about how his mother's support allowed him to pursue his dreams, despite the hardships they faced. As a child, Keanu Reeves faced a world full of uncertainty, constant change, and emotional turmoil. His early life, marked by the absence of a father and a nomadic existence with his mother, could have easily turned him away from dreams of any kind. Yet, in the midst of the hardships he faced, Keanu found solace in a very particular world, one that allowed him to escape and find his voice, the world of acting and performing. It was in this very space, early on, that Keanu began to show his natural talent and interest. While many children grow up dreaming of becoming astronauts, doctors, or teachers, Keanu found himself drawn to the art of storytelling, the magic of theater, and the profound power of human expression through performance. His first brush with acting came at the age of 9, when his mother enrolled him in a theater camp. It was there, in that creative and supportive environment, that Keanu's passion for acting truly blossomed. But for Keanu, it wasn't just about wanting to be an actor. It was about using the craft as an outlet for personal expression and as a means of finding stability in a life full of upheaval. At a young age, Keanu was already deeply introspective. The frequent moves, the constant need to adapt to new surroundings, and the emotional toll of growing up without a father made him feel like an outsider much of the time. Yet, on stage in the world of acting, he found something that allowed him to put his emotions into words, actions, and characters, something that gave him a sense of purpose and direction in a life that often felt out of control. Keanu's connection to acting was not purely about the desire for fame or recognition. It was more profound than that. Acting, for him, was a form of therapy, an escape where he could become someone else, someone confident, someone who commanded the audience's attention. It was also a world where he could belong, even if just for a moment, in a way that he couldn't always feel in the real world. Through the characters he played, Keanu could explore a variety of emotions and scenarios that were beyond the scope of his own life experiences. On stage, he could take on different identities and explore worlds that felt distant from his own, giving him a sense of control over his story. However, Keanu's path to acting wasn't without its challenges. While his natural talent for performance became increasingly apparent, the road to success in the entertainment industry is rarely a straight line. Keanu faced numerous hardships and obstacles, many of which came from his own insecurities and self-doubt. Growing up, Keanu often felt like an outsider, both at school and at home. He didn't always fit the mold of what others expected of him. As a teenager, he struggled with self-confidence, and he was frequently bullied for his quiet demeanor and his unique appearance. His stutter, a trait that had followed him through much of his early childhood, only compounded the difficulty he had in expressing himself outside of acting. He has since mentioned how this speech impediment affected his interactions with others, making him more withdrawn. It wasn't easy for Keanu to find his place, and there were moments when he questioned his ability to succeed in the field he had grown so passionate about. But even in the face of these personal obstacles, Keanu remained determined. He wasn't one to let his challenges define him, nor was he willing to give up on his dreams. The stutter, which once made him hesitant to speak in public, never hindered his ability to perform. It was as if when he was on stage or in front of the camera, he became someone else entirely, a person who could express himself freely without the restrictions that plagued his everyday life. In fact, acting allowed Keanu to confront and overcome these struggles in a way that few other outlets could. The formative years spent honing his craft in high school plays were pivotal. They gave him not only a sense of purpose, but also the confidence to persevere through difficult times. Keanu became involved in school productions, and it was here in front of audiences of his peers that he began to realize that acting was not just a hobby. It was something he was good at, something that could change the course of his life. Yet, even as Keanu began to gain recognition for his natural talent, he knew that breaking into the professional world of acting would not be easy. The industry was filled with people vying for the same opportunities. And for someone like Keanu, who had no formal training and who had come from a background marked by instability, the odds seemed stacked against him. Still, Keanu was not one to be easily discouraged. His mother, Patricia, who had always supported his artistic endeavors, continued to encourage him to pursue acting. She believed in him, and that belief gave Keanu the strength to keep moving forward, even when the road seemed uncertain. By the time he was in his late teens, Keanu began to take more concrete steps toward his dream. He moved to Los Angeles with the hope of breaking into the film industry. Though his first years in the city were far from glamorous, Keanu faced rejection after rejection. His humble beginnings, his lack of formal training, and his unconventional looks made it difficult for him to land major roles. But he refused to give up. His love for craft and his inner resilience drove him to continue auditioning, to continue learning and growing as an actor. By the time Keanu was in his teenage years, acting had become far more than just a childhood passion. It was no longer about stepping into other characters to escape from personal difficulties. It had become a part of his identity. It was something that felt as natural to him as breathing. But Keanu wasn't just some kid who stumbled upon acting by accident. No, he had an unshakable drive, and he was determined to take his craft seriously. During his high school years, Keanu began to put his heart and soul into his performances. It wasn't just about memorizing lines and delivering them. It was about embodying the characters he played and using acting as a way to express the emotional depth that sometimes words alone couldn't convey. And this was evident to anyone who watched him perform. Keanu's high school experiences were more than just formative. They were the very foundation upon which his career would be built. His first experiences in acting came in the form of high school plays, where he not only showed his ability to act, but also demonstrated his profound dedication to the craft. These plays weren't just extracurricular activities for Keanu. They were opportunities for him to refine his skills, experiment with different roles, and learn the art of storytelling. But in Keanu's world, high school plays weren't enough to satisfy his growing ambition. The small stages of local theater couldn't contain the larger-than-life dreams he had. Keanu knew that if he wanted to make it as an actor, he had to push further, stretch beyond his comfortable boundaries, and seek opportunities that could propel him into the professional acting world. His focus wasn't simply on building his talent. He was also working tirelessly to build his confidence, to overcome the insecurities that haunted him during his earlier years. Soon after completing high school, Keanu made a pivotal decision. He moved to Toronto to pursue acting full-time. He wasn't just dreaming of a big break. He was preparing for it. Toronto was an arts hub, and Keanu quickly immersed himself in the vibrant theater scene there, making connections, attending auditions, and learning the ropes of the professional acting world. But as anyone who's ever tried to make it in the entertainment industry knows, breaking into Hollywood isn't as simple as stepping onto a stage and hoping for the best. The reality is that rejection is a constant companion on the road to success. Even with his raw talent and determination, Keanu faced his share of disappointment. He had to learn how to handle rejection and use it as fuel to improve, rather than letting it crush his spirit. It wasn't long before Keanu's efforts began to bear fruit. His big break came in the form of a commercial. Yes, it was a starring role in a feature film or a lead part in a blockbuster production, but it was something crucial, an entry point into the industry. Keanu landed a commercial for a popular soft drink brand, which marked his very first professional gig. This was a huge moment for him. It was a recognition of his talent. And, perhaps more importantly, it was proof that his dreams of becoming a working actor were within reach. Landing that first commercial wasn't just about getting paid. It was an acknowledgement that he belonged in the world of acting. that he was being seen and valued for his talent. The commercial itself wasn't anything particularly groundbreaking. It didn't go down in history as one of the most memorable ads ever made, but for Keanu, it was a launch pad. It opened doors to further opportunities and served as a catalyst for the next stage of his journey. As is often the case in Hollywood, getting your foot in the door is just the beginning. After his success in the commercial, Keanu continued to pursue any acting opportunity that came his way. He auditioned for small roles in television shows and low-budget films, each audition serving as another lesson in perseverance, resilience, and growth. While Keanu was trying to land bigger roles in film and television, he didn't shy away from smaller projects either. In fact, he threw himself into every role he was offered with the same passion and dedication. His next major opportunity came in the form of One Step Away, a TV movie in which he had a small role. This was followed by a brief appearance in the Canadian series, Hanjin In, which, although a far cry from the fame he would eventually achieve, further helped him refine his skills and gain visibility in the industry. Keanu didn't view these early gigs as insignificant or as stepping stones toward bigger and better things. He treated every role, no matter how small, as an opportunity to grow as an actor. He was learning how to connect with different characters, how to adapt to various genres, and most importantly, how to maintain his authenticity in an industry that was often more about the next big thing than about the artist behind the role. And then came the breakthrough. Keanu was cast in a major film called River's Edge in 1986. This film would forever change the trajectory of his career. River's Edge was a gritty, indie drama that explored the struggles of a group of teenagers grappling with the harsh realities of life. And Keanu's role as the troubled, misunderstood character of Matt was a revelation. His portrayal was raw, vulnerable, and incredibly believable, a stark contrast to many of the cookie-cutter characters that populated teen films of the time. It was with River's Edge that Keanu truly showed the world what he was capable of. His performance received critical acclaim and helped to solidify his place in Hollywood. No longer just a young actor working in commercials and small television roles, Keanu was now being recognized as someone with real talent and potential. River's Edge was a pivotal moment in his career. It opened doors for him to pursue more substantial, more diverse roles in films that would eventually make him an international star. Next up, it's time to talk about the moment that put Keanu on the map. Yep, it's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Cult classic that introduced us to the laid-back charm of Ted Theodore Logan. Keanu Reeves' journey into the world of Hollywood stardom can be traced back to a moment that, at the time, seemed like a simple audition. But this moment, unbeknownst to him, would forever change the trajectory of his career. It was the early 1980s, and Keanu, still a relatively unknown actor, was navigating his way through the industry. He had made a name for himself in small TV roles and a few forgettable films, but nothing had yet placed him firmly in the limelight. It was the early buzz around Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that would come to mark the beginning of something extraordinary. The film's creators, Chris Matheson and Ned Solomon, had a unique vision for a teen comedy that was a bit off the beaten path. The script was a quirky, time-traveling romp about two slacker high school students who embark on a journey through history. Keanu Reeves, at the time still relatively fresh-faced and struggling to find a role that would truly resonate with the public, found himself in an audition for a character that, much like himself, was a bit of a misfit. The role he was auditioning for was Ted Theodore Logan, one of the two central characters in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Ted was a laid-back, almost blissfully unaware teen who, despite his lack of academic prowess, had big dreams and an unshakable optimism. In many ways, the character mirrored aspects of Keanu's own personality, which perhaps is why he was drawn to the role in the first place. But at the same time, Keanu wasn't quite sure what to expect. He had no idea that this film, with its outlandish premise and youthful energy, would resonate with audiences in such a profound way. The audition process was not particularly glamorous, but it was one of those rare moments when everything just seemed to fall into place. Keanu's laid-back, easygoing personality worked perfectly for Ted, and it was evident from his very first audition. He exuded the kind of relaxed, unpretentious charisma that would soon become his trademark. But what really stood out to the casting directors was how Keanu, despite being relatively new to the Hollywood scene, brought something fresh and effortless to the character. It was as though he was born to play Ted. There was no overacting, no forceful attempt to embody the character. It was as if Keanu simply wasted, and Ted was him. The audition for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a crucial turning point in Keanu's career, but it was also one of those moments that felt surreal for him. In the midst of the audition process, Keanu found himself grappling with the very real uncertainties that most young actors face. Uncertain about his career, uncertain about where he would fit into the bigger picture of Hollywood, and uncertain about his own potential. But all of that uncertainty was eclipsed by the sheer joy of the role itself. There was something inherently fun about the character Ted, his optimism, his willingness to go on an absurd adventure, his boundless energy, and Keanu latched onto that energy in a way that felt genuine and real. What Keanu didn't know at the time was that this role would make him an iconic part of movie history. Once Keanu was cast, the film quickly took on a life of its own. The casting of Alex Winter as Bill, Ted's best friend, rounded out the duo in a way that was immediately electric. Their dynamic, characterized by both youthful rebellion and a deep sense of friendship, clicked in a way that made the characters memorable for an entire generation. The process of filming, however, was nothing like the grandeur one might expect from Hollywood blockbusters. The film was shot on a modest budget, and the cast and crew were working with limited resources. But what they lacked in budget, they made up for in heart and enthusiasm. Keanu and Winter approached the film with a playful, almost childlike sense of fun, a quality that translated seamlessly to the screen. Their chemistry was undeniable. It was clear that both of them were enjoying every second of the experience. When Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was released in 1989, it was a sleeper hit. No one could have predicted the cultural phenomenon that the film would become. On paper, it seemed like an odd concept. Two goofy teens time traveling to meet historical figures, all while trying to pass their history class. Yet, the movie's lightheartedness, its absurd humor, and its message of friendship and following your dreams resonated with audiences in a way that was both unexpected and heartwarming. What made the film so appealing was its authenticity. It didn't try to be anything other than what was a fun, feel-good ride that celebrated the joy of being young, carefree, and full of possibility. It didn't hurt that Keanu Reeves, with his effortlessly cool, almost zen-like demeanor, embodied the essence of the character of Ted so well. He wasn't trying to be something he wasn't. He was simply being Ted. But what made Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure more than just another teen comedy was its impact on popular culture. The film became a cult classic, a beloved treasure for fans who cherished the character's journey through history and the comedic moments that ensued. Keanu's portrayal of Ted, with his trademark whoa and infectious enthusiasm, became instantly iconic, and suddenly he was thrust into the spotlight as one of Hollywood's most promising young stars. The unexpected success of the film propelled Keanu into the limelight in a way that few could have anticipated. The film's success was not just about its box office numbers. It was about the way it resonated with an entire generation of viewers who saw something of themselves in Bill and Ted, and by extension, in Keanu himself. In the years that followed, Keanu would look back at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as the moment that set everything in motion. It wasn't just a film. It was a defining moment in his life. The moment when he realized that his dream of becoming a successful actor could be a reality. But more than that, it was a moment that connected him with an audience who would become fiercely loyal to him throughout his career. That, perhaps, was the greatest gift that Bill and Ted gave to Keanu. The knowledge that his unique personality, his authenticity, and his laid-back approach to life had a place in Hollywood. By the time Keanu Reeves walked into the audition room for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, he was just a young actor, still trying to find his footing in Hollywood. But little did he know, this quirky, time-traveling comedy would not only change his career, but would also serve as a gateway that propelled him into international stardom. The film was a relatively small-budget project when it was first pitched. Directed by Stephen Herek, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a fun, goofy concept about two high school slacker friends, Bill and Ted, who traveled through time in order to pass their history class. The plot was a blend of absurd humor, youthful optimism, and ridiculousness, and called for two leads who could embody both the charming innocence and the laid-back, freewheeling attitude that made Bill and Ted endearing to audiences. Keanu, then just a 23-year-old with limited experience in big-budget films, was cast as Ted Logan, the more slightly goofy of the two protagonists. His character was a bit of an airhead, always positive, and completely oblivious to the chaotic events happening around him. But what set Keanu apart was his natural ability to make even the most absurd lines and situations feel relatable. Ted wasn't just a silly, clueless character. Keanu brought an earnestness and sincerity to the role that made Ted lovable, even when he was at his most ridiculous. But before the world could know about the success of Bill and Ted, there was the audition process, a process that would turn out to be a defining moment in Keanu's career. The audition process for Bill and Ted was one that Keanu almost didn't take seriously at first. He had been grinding away in Hollywood for a few years, struggling to land big roles, and the script for Bill and Ted seemed at first glance like a goofy teen comedy that wouldn't amount to much. Still, he knew that auditions were a part of the game, and he wouldn't have won like he had done with others before. The initial chemistry test between Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, who played Bill S. Preston, was something special. According to Winter, it wasn't the usual run-of-the-mill pairing for an audition. There was an effortless, almost immediate rapport between the two actors. They were both young, with similar senses of humor, and both were comfortable enough to be vulnerable with each other during the process. The pair could riff off each other naturally, and this spontaneity became the heartbeat of Bill and Ted's dynamic. Keanu, for his part, leaned into the character of Ted with such sincerity and charm that it was clear from the first audition that he had a unique take on the role. He wasn't just playing a stereotypical slacker. He was embodying someone who, despite his complete lack of ambition or intellectual prowess, was full of heart. Keanu's ability to make Ted endearing even in his most clueless moments was crucial in setting the character apart from the standard goofy best friend trope. The director saw that chemistry immediately, and it became clear that Keanu was a great fit for the role. But it wasn't just his natural charisma that worked. Keanu's ability to bring out Ted's innocence and warmth while still making him hilariously oblivious to the chaos around him turned the role into more than just a punchline. Keanu, in a way, added depth to Ted Logan, making him the heart of the film's unlikely journey. When Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was released in 1989, no one anticipated the level of success it would achieve. It was a film that could easily have slipped under the radar as just another teenage comedy. However, audiences quickly connected with the fun-loving, dopey duo, and Bill and Ted became a surprise hit. The movie's success didn't just depend on its absurd premise or the zany plot. It was the chemistry between Keanu and Alex Winter, their ability to breathe life into their roles, that turned it into a cultural phenomenon. Keanu, in particular, stood out. His performance as Ted Logan became iconic. The film, with its time-traveling antics, was full of absurdities, but Keanu's portrayal of Ted grounded it with sincerity. His unwavering optimism in the face of outlandish events made him not just a character in a silly movie, but someone audiences could genuinely root for. Ted wasn't just a spacey teenager with no direction. Keanu played him as someone who, despite his lack of focus, had a heart of gold. This juxtaposition was precisely why audiences loved the character so much, and it made Keanu a household name practically overnight. But success doesn't always come without challenges. Although Bill and Ted was a success at the box office and became a cultural touchstone, Keanu's sudden fame brought with it its own set of challenges. Keanu went from being an actor in small roles to a leading man in a worldwide hit. But rather than reveling in his newfound stardom, Keanu struggled with the intense attention and expectations placed on him. For Keanu, the success of Bill and Ted wasn't about the glitz and glamour of Hollywood fame. It was about the relationships he built and the characters he played. He was not the type of person to buy into the celebrity culture surrounding him. He continued to stay grounded, focused more on his craft than on the trappings of fame. As the success of Bill and Ted grew, so did Keanu's public persona. He was no longer just a young actor playing a goofy, time-traveling slacker. People began to notice Keanu for his down-to-earth nature, his calm and collected demeanor, and his willingness to avoid the traditional Hollywood spotlight. His laid-back attitude, combined with his unique blend of charisma and humility, made him even more endearing to his fans. The public perception of Keanu as a humble, unpretentious figure started to take root during his Bill and Ted years. While many other young stars were embracing the limelight and living up to the glitzy Hollywood stereotype, Keanu was instead cultivating an image of someone who was genuinely focused on the craft of acting and who didn't get caught up in the chaos of fame. But it wasn't just his off-screen persona that began to shine, it was his on-screen presence as well. The charm and warmth Keanu brought to his characters became his signature trait. In Bill and Ted, audiences fell in love with his character's carefree attitude, and it was that same energy that would later be evident in roles like Neo in The Matrix and Johnny Utah in Point Break. Keanu had a knack for playing characters who, while cool and often in control, maintained an endearing and humble quality. By the early 1990s, the world had been introduced to Keanu Reeves through Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And while many saw him as simply the goofy, wide-eyed Ted Logan, something else had started to emerge, something more enduring than a single role. Audiences, critics, and even fellow actors began to recognize a quality in Keanu that couldn't be written into a script or performed on cue. It was his presence, calm, humble, naturally likable, and was beginning to find him both on and off screen. In the years that followed his breakout, there was no calculated branding strategy, no overly managed PR campaign to craft an image. Keanu's signature laid-back, almost shy charisma wasn't manufactured. It was authentic. You could see in the way he moved through Hollywood. Quietly, respectfully, almost like he didn't quite belong to the machine he was now a part of. While some young stars leaned into their fame, Keanu stepped back from it. He gave space to his audience to interpret him as they saw fit. There was no need for flash or grand gestures, just quiet consistency and sincerity, and it translated into his work. Even when playing characters that demanded intensity, whether it was a cop, a lawyer, or a rogue hero, Keanu always brought a kind of soft strength to the screen. He never overwhelmed scenes with bravado or ego. Instead, he drew audiences in with nuance. He became a presence that felt trustworthy, even when his characters were in the middle of chaos. That was the paradox of Keanu Reeves. Calm amidst the storm, stillness in the whirlwind. As the role started to vary, whether it was a rebellious teenage hustler in My Own Private Idaho, or the more straightforward romantic interest in films like A Walk in the Clouds, a consistent through line in all of his performances was that gentle, unaffected demeanor. He made audiences feel at ease. He wasn't intimidating, nor was he trying to be the loudest person in the room. That calm energy, combined with a natural screen magnetism, made him stand out in a town filled with louder personalities. People began to notice something else too, how he carried himself outside of the frame. There was a gentleness in the way he interacted with fans, a quiet attentiveness in interviews, and a tendency to listen more than speak. He wasn't trying to impress. He wasn't performing in real life. This was just Keanu. And over time, that sincerity became part of his legend. He would ride the subway like any other citizen, often giving up his seat without drawing attention. He avoided high-profile Hollywood parties and paparazzi-heavy haunts. He grieved privately when his heart broke. He donated generously without seeking publicity. His modesty wasn't performative. It was who he was. And this, too, fed into his growing image as a new kind of leading man, one who could be enigmatic without being distant, cool without trying. In film, he wasn't often the wisecracking hero or the slick ladies' man. He didn't posture, didn't lean into cockiness. Instead, he offered something quieter: resolve, loyalty, vulnerability. That subtle approach gave his characters depth that others couldn't fake. Whether it was Ted Logan's joyful innocence, Johnny Utah's calm under pressure, or Neo's introspective strength, Keanu became known for portraying men who didn't need to dominate. They needed to understand. And that made all the difference. The media often struggled to define him. He wasn't easy to categorize. Was he a leading man or a character actor, a heartthrob or an outsider? But in the end, it didn't matter. What he gave the world was a personality that wasn't about categories. It was about consistency, humility, and quiet presence. The kind of aura that drew people in and stayed with them long after credits rolled. By the time the 90s were in full swing, Keanu Reeves had established not just a career, but in essence, a signature calm that audiences trusted, not just because of the roles he played, but because of the man they sensed behind him. And in a town often defined by artifice and ambition, that authenticity became his greatest power. As Keanu Reeves stepped deeper into the bright, relentless world of Hollywood, fame began to follow him everywhere. After the surprise success of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and the subtle rise of his magnetic persona, he had become a name people recognized, an image that film executives wanted to shape and an actor fans wanted more of. But while the industry moved fast, Keanu moved differently. Fame didn't seem to change him. If anything, it seemed to confuse him. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. He wasn't hunting down the biggest parties or headlines. He wasn't trying to build a brand like many young actors of his generation. Keanu wasn't playing a game, not because he was rebelling against it, but because he genuinely didn't understand why it mattered. The glitz, the pressure, the constant attention, it didn't appeal to him. He had come into acting for the craft, the connection, the story, not the red carpets and flashing cameras. But avoiding fame in Hollywood is a little like trying to stay dry in the rain. It's everywhere. Suddenly, journalists wanted in-depth profiles. Tabloids watched him with long lenses. Studios wanted to mold him into the next big heartthrob. Yet, through it all, Keanu kept a steady pace. He didn't push himself into the front row of every event. He didn't take every movie just for visibility. He chose roles based on instinct, not image. And it wasn't always easy. Some critics didn't get him. Some films underperformed. He was occasionally labeled as wooden or aloof, often by people trying to force him into a box he was never trying to fit into. But Keanu didn't respond to any of it. He didn't fight back in the press or try to prove himself with dramatic reinventions. He simply kept working. Quietly, thoughtfully, patiently. He handled the pressure of early fame the way he handled most things, with quiet resilience. He found ways to ground himself, ways that kept him connected to who he was before the movies and the headlines. He kept a small circle of trusted friends. He leaned on his passion for music and literature. He avoided the artificial, the shallow, the staged. And when life outside of acting got heavy, he carried that weight with grace, never using personal struggles to win public sympathy or sway opinion. He simply endured. There were moments, of course, when the glare of fame clashed with the soft-spoken man behind it. He wasn't immune to criticism, but he refused to let it shape his path. He understood, maybe better than most, that the public eye can be both generous and cruel, that it can lift you up just as quickly as it can cast you aside. But Keanu never let the spotlight dictate his identity. He didn't crave validation from strangers. He just wanted to tell good stories, do good work, and live simply. What set him apart in those early years wasn't just his acting. It was his quiet refusal to become someone he wasn't. In an industry that often demands reinvention, Keanu's strength was his consistency. He was always himself, soft-spoken, sincere, quietly intense. And slowly, people started to realize that maybe that was the whole point. That maybe in a world of noise, his silence said the most. And now, we head into establishing a reputation in action and drama films. Where Keanu begins to show the world he's more than just a funny guy. By the early 1990s, Keanu Reeves was no longer just the easygoing, lovable slacker from Bill and Ted. Hollywood had begun to take notice of something else, something more layered, more intense, and quietly magnetic. Beneath that laid-back surface was an actor with a growing hunger to expand, to step outside the boundaries of what the industry assumed he could do. The transition wasn't loud or calculated. Keanu didn't make bold declarations or chase awards to prove he could handle more serious roles. He let his choices speak for him. He began gravitating toward characters with more grit, more complexity, men with quiet turmoil or moral conflict. Films like Point Break became the beginning of that evolution. In Point Break 1991, Keanu played FBI agent Johnny Utah, a role that demanded physicality, edge, and emotional range. It wasn't just another cop movie. This was a story about adrenaline, brotherhood, and blurred lines between justice and loyalty. It required Keanu to move differently, to embody tension and control in equal parts. And he rose to the challenge, surprising critics who once saw him only as a soft-spoken comic figure. His presence in Point Break marked a turning point. Audiences began to see him not only as a likable actor, but as someone capable of carrying intensity on his shoulders without losing his emotional center. But it was Speed that would shift everything. Released in 1994, Speed wasn't just a hit. It was a full-throttle explosion. A movie with a simple premise. A bomb on a city bus that would detonate if the speed dropped below 50 miles per hour became one of the most gripping action films of the decade. At the center of it all was Keanu Reeves as LAPD Officer Jack Traven, navigating chaos with calm intensity that felt both real and riveting. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't overly macho. He didn't yell his way through the tension. Instead, he played Jack with a grounded urgency, a man who thought fast, moved fast, but felt everything along the way. The role demanded physical endurance, emotional restraint, and laser-sharp focus. And Keanu delivered all three. The way he carried the tension of every scene, the subtle worry behind his eyes, the quiet moment of connection with co-star Sandra Bullock. It all added up to a performance that was both thrilling and deeply human. Speed wasn't just an action film. It was a statement. Keanu Reeves could lead. He could handle intensity. He could be the guy that audiences trusted when everything was falling apart. That movie didn't just entertain millions. It repositioned Keanu in the eyes of the industry. He wasn't a fluke. He wasn't a temporary fad. He had arrived, and he had range. But through all of it, Keanu didn't let the noise change him. As the offers began to roll in, as his face filled more billboards, he remained grounded, still selective, still humble, still curious. This chapter of his career was about growth, both in how others saw him and in how he began to explore the edges of his own talent. He wasn't rushing through the door Hollywood had opened. He was stepping through carefully, intentionally, ready for the long road ahead. By the time Speed hit theaters in 1994, Keanu Reeves had already proven he could carry a film. But this was different. This was the role in the film that would take his career to a new level. A bus that couldn't drop below 50 miles per hour without exploding might have sounded like just another 90s action gimmick. But Keanu's performance transformed that concept into something thrilling, intense, and surprisingly grounded. This wasn't a role built around one-liners or bravado. Keanu played Jack Traven with a steady calmness, an unforced intensity that didn't shout for attention but held it anyway. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room. He was the one who looked like he was actually listening, thinking, calculating. And that subtle difference made Speed stand out. It made him stand out. Audiences weren't just watching explosions and car chases. They were watching someone who made heroism look real. Keanu's Jack wasn't flawless. He sweated, panicked, made mistakes, but he kept going. He didn't play the invincible action stereotype. He played someone you'd want by your side in a crisis, because you could see he cared. That sincerity resonated. It stuck with people. And it wasn't just moviegoers who noticed. Industry insiders began looking at Keanu with new eyes. He had what Hollywood craved: box office power, crossover appeal, and a way of connecting that didn't rely on flash. The film grossed over $350 million worldwide, becoming one of the year's biggest hits. And Keanu's face was suddenly everywhere, from posters and magazine covers to casting shortlists for every major studio film in production. But what cemented his place wasn't just the numbers. It was how he handled the pressure that followed. He didn't chase every blockbuster thrown his way. In fact, he famously turned down Speed 2, a sequel that most actors would have jumped at for the paycheck alone. That decision raised eyebrows. Why walk away from guaranteed fame? Because for Keanu, it wasn't about repeating success. It was about staying true to what mattered: performance, integrity, and roles that meant something to him. He wasn't chasing a mold. He was shaping his own. With Speed, Keanu wasn't just part of the action genre. He had helped redefine it. He brought a human face to high-stakes chaos. And he did it without raising his voice. This was no longer the guy from Bill and Ted. This was the guy studios could trust with a summer blockbuster. The guy fans could cheer for. The guy other actors quietly respected. He didn't roar onto the A-list. He arrived with quiet force and stayed. In 1999, Keanu Reeves faced a challenge that defined his career. Enter The Matrix, a groundbreaking film that would not only redefine sci-fi action, but also propel Keanu Reeves into global superstardom. The world of The Matrix was unlike anything seen before, a universe where reality is nothing more than a computer simulation. Keanu's character, Neo, a hacker turned savior of humanity, would embark on a journey that would forever change both his life and ours. Neo's journey from ordinary man to the One wasn't just a physical transformation. It was mental, philosophical, and spiritual. Keanu Reeves, quiet, cool, and unwavering, brought the perfect balance to a character caught between an oppressive system and the fight for free will. But no hero is complete without a villain, and The Matrix delivered one of cinema's most iconic. Agent Smith, played by Hugo Weaving, was a perfect foil to Neo's calm and growing sense of power. Cold, calculated, and relentless, Smith wasn't just a man. He was the embodiment of the system itself, a force that sought to suppress the human spirit. Their rivalry? A philosophical battle, as much as it was a physical one. Neo fought for freedom, for choice, while Agent Smith, an agent system, sought to destroy that freedom, seeing humanity as a virus. Their battles weren't just punch for punch, but a clash of ideas. And when Keanu and Hugo Weaving faced off in those now legendary fight scenes, the sparks flew. But what truly set The Matrix apart was how it didn't just revolutionize the action genre. It made us think. The film's impact? Immense. It sparked a generation of fans, influencing everything from fashion to the way we look at technology. It gave us more than just thrilling fight scenes and jaw-dropping special effects. It gave us a new way of seeing the world. And in the middle of all this chaos stood Keanu Reeves, a man who wasn't just playing a hero, but embodying the struggle for freedom in a world where reality could be twisted at will. Neo's journey became Keanu's, and in many ways, The Matrix was a film that cemented his place as an icon. After Speed rocketed Keanu Reeves to the top of Hollywood's A-list, the path ahead looked golden. He could have easily coasted on the momentum, picking one explosive action role after another. The offers were there. The money was there. The fame was locked in. But Keanu, true to form, wasn't interested in the safe route. And that made the road ahead far more complicated. For every action-packed hit that made headlines, Keanu was quietly and deliberately stretching himself as an actor. He didn't just want to be the action guy who jumped out of buses and dodged bullets. He wanted to be more, and that journey wasn't always smooth. When he chose to star in Bernardo Bertolucci's Little Buddha, 1993, many critics were baffled. It was a slow, philosophical film, almost the opposite of what Hollywood expected of him. In it, Keanu portrayed Prince Siddhartha, the man who would become Buddha. The performance was soft-spoken, introspective, and spiritual. For Keanu, the film was an opportunity to explore depth and humanity beyond the adrenaline-fueled narratives people had begun associating him with. But Hollywood isn't always kind to actors who step outside the box. Critics didn't always understand his choices. Some questioned his range. Some questioned his accent work. And at times, the reviews were brutal. But Keanu never responded with defensiveness. He kept moving forward, learning, refining, staying committed to roles that meant something to him, even if they didn't guarantee applause. And while he remained active in the action space, his choices became more varied and intentional. He took on Shakespeare with Much Ado About Nothing, 1993, delved into haunting Gothic territory with Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992, and stepped into courtroom drama with The Devil's Advocate, 1997. That last one, in particular, showed just how much he'd evolved. Playing opposite Al Pacino, Keanu stood toe-to-toe with one of cinema's most explosive talents, and he held his ground. These weren't just roles, they were risks. And with each one, Keanu was testing his boundaries, sharpening his craft, and defying the notion that he was just a stoic action figure. He began to show layers, emotional, moral, spiritual. Not every role worked. Some fell flat with audiences. But Keanu never lost focus on the bigger picture, becoming a better actor, not just a more famous one. There was a quiet resilience to his journey. Every time he took a hit, whether from critics or box office disappointments, he came back not louder, but stronger. He didn't seek validation through headlines or awards. He found it in the work, in the process, in the characters that challenge him. Balancing drama with action wasn't about shifting genres. It was about expanding the conversation around who Keanu Reeves was. And in doing so, he made space for complexity, vulnerability, and soul in roles that might otherwise have felt shallow. Keanu wasn't just growing as an actor. He was reshaping what stardom could look like when rooted in humility, risk-taking, and authenticity. At a time when many actors would have comfortably leaned into the image Hollywood had sculpted for them, Keanu Reeves resisted. With the global success of Speed, he had cemented his place as a bona fide action star. Offers poured in: more explosions, more car chases, more guns. The industry was eager to put him in a box labeled bankable action hero. But Keanu, with his quiet instincts and almost philosophical approach to life, wasn't interested in labels. Avoiding typecasting wasn't just a career strategy. It was a personal necessity. He didn't want to be trapped playing the same man in different clothes. There was something in him that needed variety, that longed to try new textures and explore unfamiliar emotional terrains. One of the most striking examples of this came after Speed. 20th Century Fox offered him Speed 2, a massive sequel with a lucrative paycheck. But Keanu turned it down, not because he didn't appreciate what the first film did for his career, but because he didn't believe in the story. It didn't feel right. And even at the risk of disappointing studios and upsetting his agents, he walked away. Instead, he went on tour with Shakespearean Theatre Company, performing Hamlet in Canada. That decision said everything about the kind of artist Keanu was becoming. He didn't chase fame, he chased fulfillment. And then came films that felt like left turns to anyone watching from the outside. A Walk in the Clouds, 1995, saw him playing a sensitive, poetic soldier returning from war, a romantic lead rather than a bullet-dodging rebel. He chose introspective dramas like Feeling Minnesota, 1996, and even lent himself to quirky comedies like The Replacements, 2000. Each choice felt like a step away from the expected and towards something more honest. There were also commercial risks. Films like Johnny Mnemonic, 1995, and Chain Reaction, 1996, didn't perform well critically or financially. For a lesser actor, this might have signaled the end of experimentation. But for Keanu, it was part of the journey. He understood that growth didn't come from staying safe. It came from trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. What set him apart was not just his willingness to explore different roles, but his humility in doing so. There was no ego in the way he approached his work. He didn't demand headlines or accolades. He simply wanted to show up and give something of himself to the story. Whether it was a sci-fi thinker or a romance, a courtroom thriller or an indie character study, he treated each part with the same quiet reverence. Keanu's refusal to be typecast also came with another unspoken truth. He didn't seem to care about Hollywood's approval. He made choices based on what felt meaningful, not marketable. That kind of integrity is rare, and it came at a cost. There were moments when his star power dipped, when critics questioned his trajectory. But Keanu never reacted with reinvention, or reinvention for reinvention's sake. He just stayed the course. And over time, that commitment to artistic freedom paid off. Audiences began to see him not just as an action hero or a romantic lead or a dramatic actor, but as a figure who defied definition altogether, a performer who could slip between genres, disappear into roles, and re-emerge with something completely new each time. By refusing to be boxed in, Keanu Reeves was building something bigger than a career. He was crafting a legacy defined not by repetition, but by evolution. Now, let's talk about the game changer, John Wick franchise, solidifying Keanu's icon status. There are few comebacks in Hollywood that feel as raw, poetic, and unexpected as Keanu Reeves stepping into the world of John Wick. And yet, Somehow, it makes perfect sense. By the early 2010s, Keanu had been in the industry for decades. He played the charming goofball, the unstoppable hero, the soulful wanderer. He'd seen the dizzying highs of blockbuster success and the quieter, sometimes harsher valleys that followed. Hollywood had changed since the Matrix trilogy wrapped. New stars had emerged. The industry's obsession with reboots and CGI-driven spectacles had left less room for grounded, character-driven action films. Keanu was still working, consistently, but the roles were smaller, the films lower profile. To some, it might have seemed like his era was winding down. And then came John Wick. The story on the surface was simple, even strange. A retired assassin mourning the death of his wife is pulled back into the underworld after a mobster's son steals his car and kills the puppy she left him. But what could have been just another revenge thriller unfolded into something else entirely. Something elegant, haunting, and quietly mythological. And at the center of it all was Keanu. Older, wearier, more internalized, and yet more dangerous than we had ever seen him. The creation of John Wick began with screenwriter Derek Kolstad, who had written a gritty, noir-like tale about a hitman with a code. But it wasn't until Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, both longtime stunt coordinators and second-unit directors, got involved that the vision fully sharpened. Stahelski, notably, had worked closely with Keanu on The Matrix, even doubling for him. That trust, that creative shorthand, was part of what made John Wick so special. It was a collaboration born from experience, mutual respect, and a shared passion for storytelling through movement. When the script landed in Keanu's hands, something clicked. He connected with the character not as a killer, but as a man carrying unbearable grief. It wasn't the bullets or the body count that drew him in. It was the silence, the stillness, the pain. Keanu saw John Wick not as a superhuman assassin, but as a broken man navigating a brutal world. And that emotional core is what gave the film its weight. When John Wick hit theaters in 2014, expectations were modest. It wasn't backed by a major studio franchise or flooded with special effects. But what it had was style, sharp, deliberate, balletic. The fight choreography was intimate. The action sequences were unflinching. It was shot like a graphic novel, lit like a European crime drama, and edited with the restraint of someone who believed the audience deserved to see every move, every hit, every breath. And audiences responded, not just with applause, but with full-throttle excitement. Word of mouth spread. Critics praised the film's clean aesthetic, grounded tone, and most of all, Keanu's magnetic return to the action forefront. John Wick didn't just land, it exploded. It became a phenomenon. But beyond the box office and glowing reviews, John Wick did something even more profound. It gave Keanu Reeves a new canvas, a new mythos, a new identity in cinema. It allowed him to bring everything he'd learned, the pain, the poise, the physical precision, into a role that respected both the man and the myth. And in doing so, it didn't just reintroduce Keanu Reeves to the world. It reminded us why we loved him in the first place. Before John Wick, the action genre was moving in a direction that felt louder, bigger, and often bloated. Explosions were plentiful, CGI reigned, and editing leaned on quick cuts and shaky cameras that disguised choreography rather than celebrated it. The charm, discipline, and physical grace that once defined action stars were slowly being replaced with digital sleight of hand. Then came John Wick, and in many ways, it was like someone hit reset on the genre. What made John Wick revolutionary wasn't just its story, it was its delivery. Every frame was a masterclass in precision. Directors Chad Stahelski and David Leitch weren't just stuntmen-turned-filmmakers. They were craftsmen who saw action as an art form. And they had the perfect lead in Keanu Reeves, who embraced their vision not with ego, but with reverence. Keanu trained for months in judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and tactical weapons handling. But what set him apart wasn't just his ability to execute. It was his willingness to absorb the mindset. He wasn't performing stunts for the camera. He became the character. His movements were efficient, deliberate, emotional. Every punch, every pivot, every reload. There was a purpose. You could feel it. This wasn't action for spectacle. It was action for storytelling. And that changed everything. Suddenly, audiences weren't just watching another high-octane shootout. They were witnessing choreography, a dance of violence with weight and rhythm. Gun Fu, a stylized blend of martial arts and firearms, became a signature of the franchise. And in an age of digital shortcuts, John Wick demanded that we see the work. Long takes, minimal cuts, no shaky distractions. Filmmakers took notice. John Wick sparked a movement, one that prioritized in-camera action, realism, and respect for physical performance. It inspired other directors to reevaluate how they approach fight scenes, and studios began greenlighting projects with similar visual integrity. But perhaps most significantly, John Wick redefined Keanu Reeves' place in the industry. Before this, he was known for The Matrix, for his stoic coolness, and for the occasional meme-worthy soundbite. He was beloved, no doubt, but often underestimated. John Wick shifted that perception entirely. He wasn't just making a comeback. He was setting a new standard. The role gave Keanu depth without words. It allowed him to express emotion in the spaces between gunfire and grief. John Wick barely spoke, but you felt everything: loss, rage, restraint. It was Keanu at his most distilled. Stripped down, focused, formidable. And audiences didn't just embrace it, they championed it. Younger fans who hadn't grown up with Speed or Point Break now had their own Keanu moment. Older fans saw an evolution, an actor who refused to be defined by time or typecast. The film became a cultural reset, reminding Hollywood that authenticity, effort, and craft still matter. It's rare to see a single film redefine both the genre and the man at its center. But John Wick did that. And Keanu Reeves didn't just return. He reminded the world who he was and why it always mattered. In the world of action cinema, the physical preparation of the actor has always been paramount. But with John Wick, Keanu Reeves took that commitment to a whole new level. In an era where CGI and digital effects often carry the brunt of action sequences, Keanu's approach was as old school as it gets: real, raw, and relentless. The sheer physicality of the performance wasn't just a testament to his acting skill, but to his tenacity and dedication to authenticity. Keanu knew that John Wick required more than just a quick training montage or a few months in the gym. He had to fully immerse himself in a world that demanded not only acting chops, but also a deep understanding of real-world combat. He dove headfirst into martial arts training, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and judo, alongside firearm specialists to ensure that the portrayal of a deadly, yet tragic hitman felt real. But what truly set him apart was his unwillingness to rely solely on stunt doubles or digital effects. He didn't just want to be the face of John Wick. He wanted to be the embodiment of him. And this desire for complete immersion came with a cost. Keanu famously underwent grueling training sessions, sometimes up to 6 hours a day, learning the intricacies of hand-to-hand combat, gunplay, and defensive driving. What's even more remarkable is that he performed the majority of his stunts himself, not for the sake of ego, but because he respected the craft. He wanted the audience to believe that John Wick was real, and that meant he had to be real. No amount of camera tricks or special effects could replace the authenticity of an actor who could convincingly handle weapons, perform his own fight choreography, and keep up with the high-speed car chases that became synonymous with the franchise. Keanu's commitment went beyond just learning the choreography. He approached every stunt with the same meticulous attention to detail that had defined his earlier roles. Every move was calculated. Every shot, every punch, every fall. It was all part of a larger symphony of action that he wanted to master. And what audiences saw on screen was a direct result of that work. The John Wick films are known for their long takes, uninterrupted sequences where Keanu moves through action scenes with the fluidity and precision of someone who has fully embraced the character. There's no cutting away to hide the actor's performance. It's all Keanu, all the time. In interviews, Keanu has shared just how intense the physical preparation was, especially for scenes involving weapons training or complex fight choreography. But what truly set Keanu apart from his contemporaries was the emotional weight he carried into the training. He wasn't just working out to get in shape. He was crafting the essence of a broken man who had lost everything. This emotional depth translated into every action sequence, every interaction, every fight, making John Wick a character who wasn't just a vessel for violence, but a man defined by the violence he was forced to carry out. The weight of that loss, combined with Keanu's dedication to physicality, elevated the action genre and turned John Wick into something more than just a typical action film. It became a character-driven story, and Keanu's commitment to portraying that character with authenticity made it resonate in a way that few films of its kind could. Keanu's preparation wasn't limited to physicality either. He understood the unique aspects of the John Wick universe, one that mixed classical action with meticulous choreography. The world of John Wick isn't one where a protagonist simply shoots his way out of a problem. There's an almost balletic quality to the way the action unfolds. Every shot, every movement is deliberate and has purpose. This was no accident. It was a direct result of Keanu's dedication to understanding not just the character of John Wick, but the world in which he existed. The success of John Wick wasn't just about the script, the direction, or the choreography. It was about the physical and emotional work Keanu put in to create a role that was as memorable as it was brutal. The sheer dedication to the physical preparation for stunts, coupled with the emotional depth he brought to the character, is what makes the John Wick franchise so impactful. When you watch Keanu Reeves as John Wick on screen, it's not just a performance. It's the result of countless hours of training, refining, and perfecting, all done to make sure the character was as authentic and impactful as possible. He didn't just play the role of John Wick. He became John Wick, and the audience would feel that in every punch, every shot, every moment of quiet reflection. Keanu's commitment to realism, his willingness to embrace the physical and emotional challenges of the role, and his desire to give the audience something real and raw has made John Wick not just a great action film, but a cultural milestone. When John Wick first hit theaters in 2014, few could have predicted the phenomenon it would become. What was initially considered a risky gamble for Keanu Reeves and the filmmakers turned into one of the most successful, game-changing franchises in the action genre. From the very first film, audiences were introduced to a world that was as stylized as it was brutal, filled with intricate world-building, dark humor, and of course, jaw-dropping action sequences. But the key ingredient that set the John Wick franchise apart from the countless other action films of time was Keanu Reeves himself. His portrayal of the titular character, a retired hitman seeking vengeance for the death of his dog, struck a chord with audiences around the world. And it wasn't just about the action. It was about Keanu's unique ability to embody a character who was both hardened and vulnerable, emotionally raw yet impossibly cool. By the time John Wick Chapter 2 was released in 2017, the franchise had already secured its place in cinematic history. The world of John Wick, with its rich mythology and rules-based society of assassins, resonated deeply with fans who appreciated the craftsmanship and attention to detail that went into each film. But more than that, Keanu's performance continued to evolve, making John Wick not just a cold-blooded killer, but a tragic hero whose every action was driven by loss and grief. The emotional stakes, paired with his physical commitment to the role, made the John Wick film stand out as something more than just typical action flicks. Keanu had done it again. He had redefined the genre. The success of the franchise had a ripple effect, not only in the world of cinema, but also in the way Keanu was viewed as an actor. He was no longer just a young, laid-back heartthrob of the 90s who had starred in films like Speed and The Matrix. He was now an action icon, a modern-day legend whose films were consistently drawing in massive audiences. With each new John Wick installment, Keanu's persona seemed to become more ingrained in pop culture. His quiet, yet intensely powerful performance as John Wick was a masterclass in understatement. There was no need for over-the-top dramatics or flashy speeches. Keanu's ability to convey grief, rage, and resolve through minimal dialogue and carefully measured actions turned him into one of the most compelling action stars of his generation. The global success of John Wick wasn't limited to box office numbers. The film's stylistic approach to violence, choreography, and world-building captivated fans, and soon, John Wick had become synonymous with Keanu Reeves himself. The film's influence spread beyond the theaters, inspiring everything from video games to comic books and even fashion. John Wick's sleek suits, black leather gloves, and signature weapons became iconic in their own right, setting trends that would endure in pop culture for years to come. However, it wasn't just a box office success that cemented Keanu as a beloved action icon. It was the way he approached the character. In an era where many action stars relied on larger-than-life personas, Keanu chose to embrace simplicity and subtlety. His portrayal of John Wick was not flashy or exaggerated. It was grounded in reality, and this made him all the more relatable to audiences. John Wick was an everyman with a particular set of skills, forced into a world of violence that he never fully embraced. He was neither invincible nor unbeatable. He was vulnerable, emotionally scarred, and deeply human. And that humanity was what endeared Keanu to fans, both old and new. By the time John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum, was released in 2019, Keanu's place as an action legend was firmly established. The franchise had grown in both scale and ambition, with jaw-dropping stunts and increasingly elaborate action sequences. Yet, despite the escalation in action, Keanu remained the beating heart of the films. His continued dedication performing his own stunts, coupled with his ever-evolving portrayal of John Wick, showed audiences that Keanu was not just a man of action, but a true artist committed to his craft. The success of the John Wick franchise also reaffirmed Keanu's ability to balance the demands of Hollywood stardom with his deeply grounded, humble nature. Unlike many other action stars, Keanu never let fame get to his head. He remained the same down-to-earth, kind-hearted individual that people had admired for decades. His interactions with fans, his charity work, and his refusal to let Hollywood's excesses define him only made him more beloved by the public. It wasn't just about being a successful actor. It was about being a genuinely good person who used his platform to make a difference. In a world where the lives of celebrities often seem like a spectacle of excess, Keanu stood out for his ability to remain humble, even in the face of monumental success. His reputation as one of the nicest and most generous actors in Hollywood further solidified his status as a beloved figure, transcending the role of a mere action star. By the time the John Wick saga reached its current heights, Keanu had become a symbol of resilience, authenticity, and unwavering dedication. The franchise had elevated his career to legendary status, but it was a commitment to the character, his incredible work ethic, and his genuine love for the craft of acting that made him truly unforgettable. Keanu Reeves had successfully navigated the transition from a youthful heartthrob to an action icon, and John Wick was a franchise that had solidified his place in the pantheon of action legends. The journey was far from over, and with each new chapter, Keanu continued to prove that, when it comes to action, no one does it quite like him. Up next is Keanu Reeves' personal struggles and tragedy. A look at the hardships that shaped the man behind the screen. Keanu Reeves has long been known for his resilience and quiet strength, but it is within his personal life, especially through immense tragedy, that his true depth of character emerges. In the late 1990s, Keanu was deeply in love with Jennifer Syme, a woman who, despite being out of the public spotlight, held a special place in Keanu's heart. The two were together for several years, and in 1999, Jennifer became pregnant with their child. This news brought an overwhelming sense of joy to Keanu, who had long yearned for the role of fatherhood. However, fate took a cruel turn when, at 8 months pregnant, Jennifer tragically lost their baby daughter, Ava, during delivery. This heart-wrenching moment was a life-altering experience for both Keanu and Jennifer. The loss of a child is a kind of grief that few can imagine. And for Keanu, the devastation was compounded by the fact that the love of his life, Jennifer, also struggled profoundly with the loss. While their grief was private, it was evident that the heartache affected both of them deeply. Keanu, who had always been reserved and guarded in his public life, now found himself at an even greater crossroads. The loss of his daughter was an unimaginable pain that, in many ways, shaped his subsequent outlook on life. For an actor whose career had been largely defined by larger-than-life characters in blockbuster films, this loss brought him face-to-face with the harsh realities of existence. The heartbreak was further compounded when, just 2 years after the loss of Ava, Jennifer tragically passed away in a car accident in 2001. She was only 28 years old. It was a devastating blow for Keanu, whose grief now turned inward. He lost not only the woman he loved, but also the mother of the child he would never get to raise. The combination of these two tragedies changed Keanu in ways that few outside his inner circle could fully understand. In the wake of these tragedies, Keanu's grief was not something that he wore on his sleeve, nor did he seek public sympathy or attention. Instead, Keanu chose to remain a deeply private individual, avoiding the spotlight in a way that seemed almost counterintuitive given his immense fame. While many in Hollywood might have turned to public displays of mourning or found solace in the media's attention, Keanu recoiled from it. He didn't want the world to see him as just another tragic figure. He wanted to heal privately, to allow himself the space to process the overwhelming pain in a way that remained personal and dignified. The way Keanu responded to such profound loss speaks volumes about his character. Instead of seeking out the comfort of public adoration or feeding into the tragic narrative that could have surrounded him, he chose solitude and quiet reflection. This period of intense personal pain likely influenced his desire for a life less consumed by the trappings of fame. For many actors, especially those who rise to prominence as quickly as Keanu, the lure of Hollywood's bright lights and lavish parties can be intoxicating. But Keanu's response to the loss of Ava and Jennifer was a rejection of that lifestyle. He found little comfort in the fame and fortune that had been bestowed upon him. Instead, his personal grief propelled him to seek deeper meaning in life and to cherish what truly mattered: love, friendship, and the fleeting moments that make life worth living. Keanu's personal tragedy also served as a turning point in his career. While it's impossible to know how much of a role this experience played in his career choices, the timing of these events seemed to coincide with Keanu's decision to step away from the blockbuster franchises that had defined his career up until that point. Though Keanu would go on to continue acting, there was a shift in the kinds of roles he took on, with a noticeable gravitation toward projects that reflected his evolving perspective on life. The once carefree and youthful roles he played in The Matrix and Speed films seemed to fade into the background, replaced by characters who were more complex, introspective, and haunted by personal struggles, much like Keanu himself. Through it all, Keanu's refusal to engage in the typical celebrity culture stood as a testament to his resilience. His pain was not something he broadcast to the world, nor did he lean on the adoration of his fans to ease a burden. Instead, Keanu took a step back in the public eye, turning inward to focus on what mattered most to him. He leaned on the few close relationships that had withstood the test of time and hardship, finding solace in the people who truly knew him. Despite the overwhelming challenges he faced, Keanu never lost sight of what grounded him: his authenticity, his quiet strength, and his ability to persevere through even the darkest of times. Though he did not, and still does not, speak extensively about the loss of Ava and Jennifer, those who know Keanu, as well as his fans, understand that this period of his life marked a profound transformation. The pain he experienced during these years undoubtedly shaped his choices and his future, both personally and professionally. The Keanu Reeves that emerged from this period was not the same person who had entered it. He had become someone with a deeper understanding of what it means to live through hardship and loss, someone who valued the moments of beauty and connection in life even more deeply than before. In many ways, Keanu's handling of his personal grief helped to solidify the reputation he holds today, a man of immense resilience, integrity, and depth. While Hollywood continues to churn out actors who seem to rise and fall with the latest trends, Keanu remains a steadfast figure, committed not only to his craft, but to living a life that remains grounded in what truly matters. His story of loss and resilience resonates with so many, and his ability to continue on in the face of unimaginable tragedy is nothing short of inspiring. It is in these quiet moments of personal reflection, when Keanu's true character shines through, that his most loyal fans have come to appreciate him for more than just the roles he plays on screen. He is, in many ways, a real-life hero, not because he saved the day on the big screen, but because he has the strength to face life's greatest challenges with grace and humility. The heart-wrenching losses Keanu Reeves experienced, the death of his daughter Ava and his partner Jennifer Syme, became pivotal moments that reshaped his worldview. Tragedy, especially of this magnitude, often has a profound effect on one's approach to life. And for Keanu, these losses transformed the very essence of how he viewed his career, his relationships, and the fleeting nature of fame. Before these personal tragedies, Keanu was already known for his grounded nature and humility. Even in the face of fame, he had a reputation for being unlike many of his Hollywood peers, eschewing the typical lifestyle of lavish parties and constant media attention. However, following the death of Ava, his perspective on life deepened even further. The profound sorrow of losing a child, followed by the heartbreak of losing Jennifer, forced Keanu to confront the fragility of life in a way that few ever have to. These experiences stripped away any illusions of immortality, replacing them with a somber acknowledgement of life's impermanence. Keanu's approach to fame shifted dramatically as a result. The glitz and glamour of Hollywood, which so often becomes a seductive trap for celebrities, became something that he distanced himself from more and more. Before the tragedies, Keanu had enjoyed the attention that came with his roles. After all, who wouldn't appreciate being admired for their talent and success? But after the loss of Jennifer and Ava, the demands of Hollywood felt increasingly hollow to him. No amount of fame or fortune could undo the grief he felt, nor could it bring back the loved ones he had lost. In the years that followed, Keanu's choices, both professionally and personally, reflected this new understanding. His commitment to his craft remained, but he began to approach his roles with a different mindset, rather than simply chasing fame or the next big paycheck. Keanu became more selective in the kinds of projects he chose. His roles began to take on a more introspective tone, often involving characters who were navigating personal grief, loss, or the search for meaning in a chaotic world. It seemed that Keanu was no longer just portraying characters on screen. He was telling stories that resonated deeply with his own personal experiences. These roles were not just career moves. They were therapeutic expressions of his own healing process. One example of this shift was his involvement in the John Wick franchise. The character of John Wick, a man who has experienced profound loss and is driven by a desire for justice and redemption, struck a chord with Keanu on a personal level. The film's themes of vengeance and emotional recovery mirrored his own journey of grappling with grief. In many ways, the character of John Wick seemed like an extension of Keanu himself. A man trying to make sense of the devastating hand life had dealt him. The success of John Wick, 2014, further solidified this connection, showing that Keanu was not only capable of reinventing himself, but also finding catharsis in the roles he took on. Keanu's personal struggles also influenced how he approached the relationships within his professional life. His experiences with grief made him more attuned to the people he worked with. He became known for being particularly generous with his time, effort, and resources when it came to his colleagues. His quiet, humble demeanor and genuine kindness toward others were not just a reflection of his nature, but also a direct result of the personal pain he had endured. In a world where many actors use their fame to create distance between themselves and others, Keanu's grounded approach to relationships became a point of distinction. In interviews, Keanu has expressed how his tragedies deepened his awareness of the fragility of life. His perspective on the superficiality of fame grew clearer, and he became increasingly focused on the value of relationships, personal connections, and living a life of authenticity. He often spoke about how loss had reshaped his approach to the world. No longer did he chase material success or public adulation. Instead, he sought deeper fulfillment in the simplicity of daily life, whether that meant spending time with close friends, enjoying the quiet of nature, or finding joy in the smallest, most human moments. This new outlook was also reflected in the way Keanu conducted himself in the years following his personal tragedies. He became less interested in publicizing his personal life and more focused on maintaining a private, grounded existence. He famously continued to live in a modest apartment, despite his immense wealth, and he regularly chose to donate large sums of money to charity anonymously. Keanu didn't want to be seen as a typical celebrity. He didn't want his life to be defined by the fame he had achieved. Instead, he sought to live in a way that was aligned with his values shaped by hardship, resilience, and profound understanding of what truly mattered in life. Through these choices, Keanu inadvertently became a role model for those navigating their own personal struggles. His ability to rise above the noise of fame, to confront life's greatest tragedies with grace, and to use those experiences to fuel his artistic and personal growth, serve as a quiet but powerful example for others. In a world where many celebrities fall victim to pressure of constant public scrutiny, Keanu's ability to stay true to himself is a rare and inspiring feat. For Keanu, these personal losses didn't mark the end of his career. They marked the beginning of a more focused, intentional approach to both his work and his life. He was no longer driven by the desire to please the masses or live up to the expectations placed on him by others. Instead, he followed a path that was deeply personal, one that allowed him to explore more meaningful roles, connect with fans on a human level, and ultimately find peace within himself. His career, once defined by blockbuster hits, became increasingly defined by roles that resonated with him emotionally and allowed him to connect with his audience in a more intimate way. Keanu's decision to step away from the constant hustle of Hollywood and focus on what truly mattered, his own healing, his personal growth, and his ability to give back to others, was not just a career choice. It was a reflection of a man who had faced unimaginable pain and found a way to use that pain to grow, both personally and professionally. Keanu's story became one of quiet strength, resilience, and the ability to rise above even the darkest times. Keanu Reeves' ability to maintain his privacy and avoid being defined by fame is one of the defining aspects of his personality. In an industry known for its intense scrutiny, where the private lives of celebrities are often as heavily covered as their professional accomplishments, Keanu has remained a figure apart. He's become known for his ability to distance himself from the pressures of celebrity culture, always emphasizing the importance of staying true to oneself and not letting fame dictate one's identity. This reluctance to let fame define him can be traced back to the difficult personal experiences Keanu has faced. Having lost his daughter Ava and his partner Jennifer Syme, Keanu learned the hard way how fleeting and fragile life can be. These devastating experiences forced him to reframe what truly matters, and he realized that the world of Hollywood, a world filled with flashes of cameras, constant public attention, and the seemingly insatiable demand for a brand or image, was not what he wanted to center his life around. For Keanu, fame wasn't something he sought. It was something that came to him as a byproduct of his talent and hard work. From the beginning of his career, Keanu exhibited a distinct preference for privacy. He didn't indulge in the tabloid culture or the red carpet events that became synonymous with Hollywood fame. While many of his peers sought out fame, relished in it, and used it to further their careers, Keanu's attitude was markedly different. He avoided being consumed by the fame that surrounded his status as an action star, preferring instead to live a quieter, more anonymous life. His consistent refusal to allow his personal life to be a spectacle speaks volumes about his character. He's always preferred to keep his family and relationships out of the public eye, and has made it clear that his private life is not something that should be fodder for public consumption. Keanu's relationship with the media is another testament to his commitment to privacy. In interviews, he is known for giving thoughtful, insightful responses, but he's also careful to avoid oversharing personal details. He doesn't play the game of celebrity gossip or feed into the sensationalist narratives often created by tabloids. If anything, he's worked hard to distance himself from those expectations. He's been known to express discomfort when asked about his personal life, and while he doesn't seem to mind talking about his work, he rarely delves into the specifics of his private world. For Keanu, his work is a reflection of his artistic passion, but it's his personal life where he draws a clear line, protecting it from the prying eyes of the public. This private nature is also reflected in his day-to-day life. Despite the millions he's earned from his blockbuster films, Keanu has famously remained modest in his lifestyle. He is not one to flaunt wealth or live a life of excess. Keanu is often described as down-to-earth, spending his free time enjoying simple pleasures, such as riding his motorcycle or enjoying quiet moments with friends. He famously lives in a modest apartment in Los Angeles, avoiding the ostentatious homes many of his Hollywood peers occupy. For Keanu, happiness doesn't come from material possessions or living in the lap of luxury. It comes from authentic relationships, self-reflection, and finding contentment in the present moment. Perhaps one of the most telling aspects of Keanu's personality is his ability to move through Hollywood without falling into its typical traps. In an industry that often pressures its stars to adhere to certain expectations, Keanu has refused to let fame define his identity or control the trajectory of his life. In a world of flashy lifestyles, he's maintained a low-key existence. He's been known to quietly donate large sums of money to charity, often anonymously, demonstrating that he prefers to let his actions speak louder than any public statement. Keanu's reluctance to let fame define him also extends to his decision-making regarding the roles he takes on. Rather than choosing roles based on a potential for commercial success, Keanu has carefully chosen projects that resonate with him on a deeper level. His body of work is defined not by the desire to be seen or adored, but by a genuine passion for the craft. Whether it's the action-packed intensity of John Wick or the more introspective, quieter roles he's taken on in films like The Lake House or A Walk in the Clouds, Keanu has always chosen roles that speak to his personal values and artistic vision. Fame has never been the driving force behind his choices. His love for storytelling, his search for meaning, and his dedication to his craft have always come first. In a society that often places immense pressure on celebrities to maintain a public persona and cultivate a brand, Keanu's ability to remain unaffected by these expectations is both refreshing and rare. His quiet, private nature stands in stark contrast to the public-facing, often superficial world of Hollywood. Keanu is a living reminder that it's possible to be a global icon without sacrificing one's authenticity. By choosing to live a life outside the glare of the spotlight, Keanu has not only set himself apart from many of his peers, but he's also carved out a legacy of personal integrity and dignity. His journey is a testament to the idea that fame, while it can be a catalyst of success, is not the defining force of one's life. For Keanu, staying true to who he is, beyond the public persona, is what has made him a beloved figure, not just a famous one. Keanu Reeves' ability to stay grounded despite his immense success in Hollywood is one of the most fascinating aspects of his life. It's rare to see someone in his position constantly under the public's watchful eye, living in one of the world's most glamorous and materialistic industries, maintain a sense of humility and authenticity. Yet, Keanu has consistently done so, choosing to live in a manner that rejects the excesses often associated with fame and fortune. His approach to life has become as much a part of his legacy as his acting. Despite achieving international fame, Keanu has made a conscious decision to reject the lifestyle that comes with it. While many of his peers in Hollywood live in sprawling mansions, drive luxurious cars, and enjoy a high-profile social life, Keanu has opted for something entirely different. He prefers a life that is low-key, simple, and free from the constant noise of celebrity culture. This choice is particularly remarkable when you consider how easy it would be for someone with his fame and financial resources to indulge in the trappings of stardom. Keanu's living situation is one of the clearest examples of his grounded approach to life. While many other Hollywood stars flaunt their wealth by purchasing grandiose estates, Keanu is known to live in a modest, unpretentious apartment in Los Angeles. He doesn't seek the spotlight in his personal life, and his home reflects that. The apartment is not extravagant, and it's clear that Keanu values comfort and simplicity over opulence. This humble living arrangement is a stark contrast to the multi-million-dollar mansions often seen on the homes of other Hollywood icons. In addition to his modest living conditions, Keanu's choice of transportation is equally telling. Unlike many of his peers who drive expensive sports cars or luxury vehicles, Keanu is known for his love of motorcycles. He frequently rides one of his motorcycles around the city, enjoying the freedom and simplicity it offers. For him, a motorcycle is not just a mode of transportation, but a way to embrace his love for adventure, solitude, and the outdoors. His preference for motorcycles also reflects his personal ethos, seeking a quieter, more reflective life in contrast to the fast-paced, high-pressure world of Hollywood. One of the most iconic examples of Keanu's grounded nature came in 2019, when he was photographed sitting on a bench at a bus stop, waiting for the bus like any ordinary person. The image quickly went viral, and people around the world were struck by how unaffected Keanu appeared by the fame surrounding him. The photo became a symbol of his humility. Here was one of the biggest movie stars in the world, taking public transportation in Los Angeles just like anyone else. It was a moment that encapsulated Keanu's entire approach to life. Grounded, humble, and entirely unpretentious. Keanu's relationships with others also reflect his commitment to staying grounded. He is known for being respectful, kind, and generous to everyone he meets, whether a fellow actor, a crew member, or a fan. He's often seen interacting with people in a way that is approachable and humble. For example, when working on the John Wick series, Keanu was reported to be especially considerate toward the stunt team, often doing his own stunts and making sure everyone was treated with respect. In fact, he famously gifted members of the crew custom motorcycles after the success of the John Wick films, demonstrating his deep appreciation for those who helped bring his work to life. One of the reasons Keanu has remained so grounded could be traced to the personal struggles and tragedies he's faced throughout his life. Having endured the devastating loss of his daughter Ava and partner Jennifer Syme, Keanu understands better than most how fragile life can be. These experiences have shaped his perspective, encouraging him to find meaning and fulfillment in simple, authentic moments rather than in material wealth or fame. His tragedies have instilled in him a sense of empathy and appreciation for people around him, which likely informs his generosity and down-to-earth demeanor. Additionally, Keanu has become a sort of role model for fans around the world who are drawn to his grounded approach to life. Many admire how he's resisted the temptation to buy into Hollywood's flashy, surface-level persona, instead choosing to live a life that is more in line with his values. His refusal to engage in celebrity culture, constant media attention, and superficiality is refreshing to many, especially in an age where fame is often used as currency for validation and social status. Keanu has also maintained a strong sense of self throughout his career. Despite his success in a variety of high-profile roles, including his iconic turn as Neo in The Matrix and the action-packed John Wick series, Keanu has remained humble almost to a fault. He's not known for making extravagant public appearances or courting media attention. Instead, he has often sought solace in solitude, taking long walks, enjoying quiet moments in nature, and even spending time volunteering in his free time. For someone who has become such a beloved figure, Keanu's focus remains on personal growth, quiet reflection, and contributing to the world in meaningful, understated ways. Keanu's grounded nature is also reflected in his philanthropic efforts. He is known to be incredibly generous, particularly when it comes to charitable causes. While he is not one to flaunt his donations, Keanu has quietly donated millions of dollars to various charitable organizations over the years, particularly those supporting children's hospitals and cancer research. He is especially known for his contributions to the Stand Up to Cancer organization, having donated a substantial amount to the cause. Despite his wealth, Keanu does not seek recognition for his charitable contributions. He prefers to stay out of the spotlight, quietly making the world a better place without seeking accolades or fanfare. His commitment to a grounded lifestyle extends beyond his personal preferences and into professional choices as well. Keanu has often chosen roles that resonate with his personal values, whether it's to portray the stoic and selfless hero in The Matrix or his role as the loyal and honorable John Wick. In doing so, he has maintained a sense of authenticity and integrity in his work, steering clear of projects that may compromise his values for the sake of box office success or fame. In a world where so many celebrities get caught up in the chase for fame and fortune, Keanu's decision to live a grounded, private life has set him apart as one of the most genuine and beloved figures in Hollywood. His humility, generosity, and refusal to allow fame to define him are qualities that have made him not just a successful actor, but a role model to millions. Keanu's ability to maintain a sense of balance and authenticity in a world that often values superficiality above all else has made him an enduring figure in the entertainment industry. Coming up is Keanu's return to the spotlight, indie roles and career shifts, where unexpected projects sparked a powerful new chapter. By the late 2000s, Keanu Reeves was no longer just a marquee action star. Having already made a name for himself in blockbuster hits like The Matrix and John Wick, Keanu reached a point in his career where he felt ready for a change, a shift from the high-octane action roles to something more nuanced, introspective, and for him, personally fulfilling. His transition into more intimate, indie roles marks a fascinating and pivotal moment in his career, one that demonstrated his evolution as both an actor and an individual. After nearly 2 decades of playing iconic action roles and building his fame through global franchises, Keanu was not content to remain stagnant in the world of explosions and car chases. He sought something different, something that allowed him to delve deeper into the complexities of human emotion and explore the kind of stories that move him on a more personal level. He took a step away from the commercial machine that Hollywood often operates as and embraced roles that took him out of the limelight and into more thought-provoking, experimental territory. Keanu's decision to embrace independent cinema came at a time when the film industry was experiencing a significant shift. The late 2000s and early 2010s saw a surge in indie films gaining both critical and commercial success. While many of his contemporaries remained attached to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, Keanu found himself gravitating toward more unconventional projects, films that defied the formulaic scripts of traditional Hollywood blockbusters. For Keanu, it was an opportunity to challenge himself creatively and take risks in ways that the more formulaic action roles didn't allow. One of the first projects that signaled Keanu's shift to indie cinema was the 2006 film The Lake House, directed by Alejandro Agresti. The film is a romantic drama that involves time travel, longing, and the concept of love that transcends physical boundaries. Keanu stars opposite Sandra Bullock in a tender, quietly emotional role, far removed from the more intense characters he had portrayed in his action-heavy career. His performance in The Lake House was an exploration of vulnerability and the complexity of relationships, and it was a stark departure from the stoic, hard-edged personas he had previously embodied. The film may not have been a huge box office success, but it was a resounding reminder that Keanu was an actor capable of much more than running from explosions or dodging bullets. Following The Lake House, Keanu continued to venture into more unconventional roles, one of the most notable being A Scanner Darkly, 2006, directed by Richard Linklater. A Scanner Darkly is an animated film based on Philip K. Dick's novel of the same name, and it dives deep into themes of identity, addiction, and surveillance. The film is particularly striking because of its unique animation technique, which utilized rotoscope animation to create a surreal, almost dreamlike effect. Keanu's portrayal of Bob Arctor, a man who becomes trapped in a world of drugs and paranoia, was a stark contrast to the heroic, action-oriented roles that had made him famous. It's a film that requires an actor to embrace nuance and subtlety, and Keanu did so with remarkable depth. His performance was praised for its emotional complexity and his ability to portray a character caught in an increasingly bizarre and tragic situation. The 2000s also saw Keanu continuing to embrace his role as an indie film director. In 2013, he directed his first feature film, Man of Tai Chi, a martial arts drama that was both a nod to his action roots and a step toward more artistic storytelling. Man of Tai Chi tells the story of a young, skilled martial artist who is drawn into the world of underground fighting. While the film contains many of the action elements that Keanu is known for, it's a more meditative and philosophical approach to combat than what audiences might have expected from his earlier films. In Man of Tai Chi, Keanu found a way to blend his love of martial arts with his desire to explore more intimate, thought-provoking themes. The film allowed Keanu to showcase his growth as an actor and director, taking a story about personal discipline and the search for balance and infusing it with heart and a sense of purpose. The shift to indie roles was not just a career decision for Keanu. It was also a personal one. Keanu's involvement in smaller, more personal films gave him the space to focus on storytelling and artistry rather than fame or commercial success. By taking on these projects, he was able to align his work with his own values and artistic vision. Indie films allowed him the freedom to take risks, whether it was by playing unconventional characters or working with up-and-coming filmmakers who had a unique vision. This period of Keanu's career was marked by a return to the core of what made him passionate about acting in the first place, the chance to be a part of stories that were meaningful, innovative, and emotionally resonant. For many actors, the decision to take on indie roles can be seen as a sign of artistic decline or an inability to land larger roles. However, for Keanu, it was a chance to redefine himself as an artist. He never seemed interested in maintaining a celebrity status or focusing on the superficiality of fame. Instead, Keanu sought artistic fulfillment through projects that allowed him to grow, learn, and experiment. His focus was always on the work itself, rather than the validation that typically comes with fame. This shift toward indie roles marked a defining point in his career, showing his resilience as an actor and his commitment to taking creative risks. While Keanu's shift to indie films was, in part, a personal journey toward artistic fulfillment, it was also a strategic career move. Hollywood often pigeonholes actors into particular types of roles, especially when they found success in a specific genre. By branching out into indie films, Keanu was able to avoid the trap of typecasting, showing his range and commitment to exploring new types of characters and stories. Rather than becoming the go-to-action hero or typecast into roles that played off his previous successes, Keanu embraced the challenge of finding new, less predictable roles that would continue to stretch his acting abilities. This shift also allowed Keanu to maintain a certain degree of privacy and anonymity. Independent films typically don't have the same media frenzy or constant press coverage that big-budget blockbusters do. By working in the indie world, Keanu was able to focus more on the art of acting and filmmaking without the burden of media attention or public scrutiny that often accompanies major Hollywood productions. Ultimately, Keanu's shift toward indie roles in the late 2000s helped him carve out a unique place for himself in the industry. He was no longer just an action hero or a leading man in romantic dramas. He had become an actor who was willing to take risks, work with emerging filmmakers, and tackle more complex, character-driven stories. This period of his career demonstrated not only his versatility as an actor, but also his dedication to maintaining an authentic and fulfilling career, one that remained true to his passion for storytelling and his desire to make meaningful contributions to cinema. As Keanu Reeves transitioned into a new phase of his career, he sought roles that not only reflected his growth as an actor, but also gave him the chance to explore the depth of human emotion, alternative storytelling, and diverse cinematic techniques. His foray into films like The Lake House, 2006, A Scanner Darkly, 2006, and Man of Tai Chi, 2013, provided Keanu the opportunity to push his craft in directions that challenged the traditional box of Hollywood stardom. These films not only marked a departure from the blockbuster roles he had been known for, but also reflected his personal interest in pursuing unique, often unconventional narratives. Released in 2006, The Lake House was a romantic drama that was far from the action-packed roles Keanu had previously undertaken. Directed by Alejandro Agresti and co-starring Sandra Bullock, the film explored themes of love, time, and destiny, all set against the backdrop of a charming lake house. Keanu's role as Alex Weiler, an architect whose destiny intertwines with that of a woman he can only communicate with through letters, despite the fact that they lived 2 years apart, required him to showcase a tender side of his acting ability. His portrayal of Alex was a contrast to the hard-edged characters he had become famous for, offering audiences a rare glimpse into Keanu's capacity for warmth, vulnerability, and depth. The movie, while not a massive box office hit, became a cult favorite for its unique plot and the chemistry between Keanu and Sandra Bullock. The love story, laced with elements of magical realism, defied the traditional romance genre by involving time travel, making it a narrative full of longing, fate, and bittersweet yearning. Keanu's performance as a man emotionally conflicted by the passage of time and his deepening connection to someone he could never physically meet showed his growth as an actor. He wasn't just playing a hero or an action figure anymore. He was playing a man caught in an almost tragic, timeless love story, testing his ability to portray quieter, more introspective emotions. For Keanu, the decision to take on a role in a lake house reflected a shift in his career, a deliberate move away from traditional blockbuster roles and towards stories that engage his emotions and creative sensibilities on a more personal level. He wasn't chasing the thrill of fame or box office numbers. Instead, he wanted to engage with something more real, something that dealt with human emotions in a way that transcended the genre conventions he had long been known for. In the same year as A Lake House, Keanu also starred in A Scanner Darkly, a film that was as experimental as it was daring. Directed by Richard Linklater, this film adapted Philip K. Dick's novel of the same name and took an unconventional route with its animation technique. The film used rotoscope animation, a method that involved tracing over live-action footage to create an ethereal, almost dreamlike effect. The story itself, a dystopian tale about addiction, surveillance, and identity, was heavy and filled with philosophical musings on the human condition. Keanu played Bob Arctor, a deep-cover narcotics agent who becomes so entangled in the world of drugs and surveillance that he loses his own identity. The role was a complex, layered portrayal of a man descending into madness, and it required Keanu to tap into a more vulnerable, even fragmented aspect of his acting. In many ways, A Scanner Darkly pushed Keanu into uncharted territory. The surreal visual style and the philosophical depth of the source material demanded a new kind of performance, one that mixes established charisma with moments of confusion, despair, and self-doubt. His character's slow unraveling, compounded by his inability to trust his own senses, added depth to the film, which was at once unsettling and poignant. Keanu's decision to take part in this animated film and play such a morally complex character was a bold move in his career. While many actors at his level might shy away from a film that was so abstract and avant-garde, Keanu embraced it wholeheartedly. His commitment to playing a character so far removed from his usual action hero persona reflected his willingness to experiment and his desire to push the boundaries of his craft. By doing so, he not only showcased his versatility as an actor, but also cemented his reputation as someone who wasn't afraid to take risks, even if it meant stepping out of the limelight of traditional Hollywood fare. By the time Keanu took on the role of director for Man of Tai Chi in 2013, he had already earned the reputation of being someone who could successfully balance action roles with more dramatic or intimate projects. But Man of Tai Chi marked a unique point in his career, where his love for martial arts and philosophy converged in a way that few films allowed. Man of Tai Chi follows the story of a young martial artist named Tiger Chin, played by Chin himself, who is drawn into the underground fighting world. Keanu, in addition to playing the antagonist of the film, also directed the project. The film was not just an action vehicle. It was also a deep exploration of internal conflict, morality, and the balance between discipline and corruption. In many ways, Keanu was telling the story of someone like himself, someone who had spent years in the action genre but sought a deeper, more philosophical reason for why people engage in combat and violence. Keanu's personal connection to martial arts, particularly Tai Chi, added an authentic layer to the film. He had long practiced martial arts himself, and through Man of Tai Chi, he had the opportunity to both direct and participate in the storytelling process on a physical and mental level. The film's themes of self-discipline, honor, and inner peace were ones that Keanu found deeply meaningful, and his own personal journey and philosophy were likely woven into the narrative of the film. For him, it was not just about choreographed fights or explosive action scenes. It was about the deeper moral questions that arise when power and violence collide. This project allowed Keanu to return to his action roots, while also tapping into the more intellectual and philosophical aspects of the martial arts tradition. The film didn't achieve blockbuster success, but it received praise for its unique take on the martial arts genre, as well as for Keanu's dedication to craft of filmmaking. For Keanu, Man of Tai Chi was not just a film. It was a personal statement about his evolution as an artist and his desire to make meaningful contributions to cinema, even if that meant stepping behind the camera. Through these 3 films, Keanu demonstrated that he was far more than a typical Hollywood action star. Each of these roles and projects reflected his desire to break away from the expected and the mainstream, to challenge himself creatively, and to embrace a more personal and meaningful approach to his work. By taking on films like The Lake House, A Scanner Darkly, and Man of Tai Chi, Keanu rejected the formulaic path often laid out for actors of his stature. Instead, he chose to forge a career path defined by artistic integrity, personal growth, and a constant search for roles that allowed him to explore different facets of human experience. These films, though varied in their genres and styles, all share a common thread. They allowed Keanu to move beyond the confines of the action star mold and immerse himself in roles and narratives that spoke to his passions and beliefs. Whether it was the emotional longing in The Lake House, the philosophical complexity of A Scanner Darkly, or the martial arts philosophy in Man of Tai Chi, Keanu was able to explore a wider range of human emotions and ideas than what Hollywood might have typically asked of him. For him, it was about crafting a career that felt meaningful, not just for the audience, but for himself as well. This commitment to artistic expression and a deeper exploration of character, coupled with his desire to maintain personal integrity and avoid typecasting, cemented Keanu's place as one of Hollywood's most intriguing, multifaceted actors, a man who had the courage to forge his own path and pursue roles that genuinely resonated with him. Keanu Reeves' career trajectory has always stood in stark contrast to the typical Hollywood stardom formula. While many actors in his position might have gravitated toward high-budget blockbusters or the roles that come with the glamorous perks of fame, Keanu deliberately chose a more unconventional path, one that focused on personal fulfillment, artistic integrity, and a quest for meaningful, diverse roles. From the early days of his rise to fame, Keanu was never fully enamored with the trappings of celebrity. Unlike many actors who sought to build a brand or a recognizable on-screen persona, Keanu resisted the pressure to conform to a specific mold. Instead, he embraced the freedom to explore roles that were outside the expected path of a traditional leading man. His willingness to experiment with a broad spectrum of roles, from intense action films like Point Break and Speed to introspective dramas like The Lake House and the philosophical thriller A Scanner Darkly, demonstrates that he was driven not by the desire to maintain a constant presence in the Hollywood spotlight, but by a passion to push his craft in new, exciting directions. Keanu's aversion to being typecast is perhaps one of the most significant aspects of his career. He could have easily ridden the wave of success from his action roles, making sequels to The Matrix or Speed and continuing to dominate the action genre. Instead, he opted to step back from the predictable cycle of big-budget films, instead favoring smaller, more intimate projects that allowed him to grow as an actor and as a person. He was also deliberate about the way he navigated the Hollywood system. Rather than engaging in the usual promotional circus associated with blockbuster films, where actors are expected to maintain a public image and participate in endless media campaigns, Keanu chose a quieter, more private existence. He shunned the Hollywood party scene and refused to indulge in a fame-driven lifestyle that many of his peers adopted. Keanu's down-to-earth nature and his decision to avoid becoming a tabloid fixture kept him away from the constant glare of the spotlight. As he moved through his career, he proved that it was possible to remain true to oneself without succumbing to the industry's expectations. At the same time, Keanu found creative ways to make his mark, even if it meant turning down roles that could have reinforced his image as an action hero. For example, after The Matrix, which solidified his status as an iconic action star, he took a step back and carefully considered his next moves. He chose a range of roles that took him outside of the blockbuster world. His decision to star in The Lake House was a perfect example, a romantic drama with a twist of magical realism. The film had little in common with the action-packed thrills of The Matrix, and yet gave Keanu an opportunity to showcase a completely different side of himself. Rather than staying in the realm of action and thrillers, he leaned into his desire to take risks and challenge his audience, proving that he was more than capable of navigating these shifts. In A Scanner Darkly, Keanu fully embraced his interest in unconventional, experimental filmmaking. The rotoscoped animated film was a far cry from anything he had done before and, in many ways, was a bold move for someone who had already achieved massive success in Hollywood. His willingness to participate in a film that was so surreal and visually groundbreaking marked another moment in his career where he chose to carve out a niche that was outside the mainstream. In doing so, he gave himself the freedom to explore stories that were more reflective of his own intellectual and philosophical interests, showing that he was not only capable of taking risks, but also of engaging with material that was both thought-provoking and artistically bold. Keanu's involvement in Man of Tai Chi, where he not only acted but also directed, further illustrates his dedication to exploring unconventional career paths. His role as a director in a martial arts film was a clear indication of his desire to contribute to cinema in ways that were not restricted to the roles he was typically offered as an actor. Through this film, he combined his passion for martial arts with his artistic vision, and his decision to take on a hands-on role in bringing the project to life demonstrated his commitment to crafting a career that felt uniquely his own. Instead of following a traditional career arc, where an actor might focus solely on acting or sign on to major franchise films, Keanu chose to stretch his boundaries and engage with film in a more multifaceted way. Throughout all of this, Keanu remained grounded and steadfast in his belief that his career was about more than just fame or box office success. His lack of interest in the typical Hollywood machine, awards, red carpets, and the constant search for validation allowed him to pursue roles that truly resonated with him. This willingness to remain outside the Hollywood mainstream ultimately created a level of freedom that few actors ever achieve. Keanu wasn't just a passive participant in his career. He was the architect of it, actively choosing roles, projects, and paths that aligned with his values and interests. This decision to resist the usual path of fame and fortune afforded Keanu the rare ability to maintain a sense of autonomy throughout his career. He was able to create a reputation as an actor who could balance his love of action with his deep desire to engage in intellectually stimulating and artistically rewarding projects. He built a legacy not by playing to expectations, but by continually surprising his audience with roles that showed a willingness to embrace both the light and dark sides of human nature. Moreover, his unconventional approach to fame allowed him to avoid the pitfalls that many actors face as they rise to prominence. Instead of burning out or becoming disillusioned by the pressures of maintaining a public image, Keanu created a career that was fulfilling in its diversity and marked by a series of choices that reflected his true self. He made it clear that his pursuit of meaningful art and personal satisfaction took precedence over the external trappings of stardom. By rejecting the typical star path, Keanu Reeves has built a career that stands as an example of how to navigate Hollywood in a way that is both true to oneself and creatively fulfilling. His journey proves that one doesn't have to conform to the expectations of the industry to achieve success. Instead, staying true to personal values, taking risks, and seeking roles that challenge both the actor and the audience can lead to a rich, diverse, and deeply satisfying career. As Keanu Reeves carved out his unconventional career trajectory, his work in the indie film circuit became one of the most fascinating and defining aspects of his career. While many Hollywood stars lean heavily on blockbuster roles to sustain their fame, Keanu deliberately sought out smaller, more intimate projects, films that allowed him to explore nuanced characters, experiment with different genres, and tap into his deeper artistic ambitions. This willingness to step away from the traditional star roles and engage with indie films not only earned him significant critical acclaim, but also provided him with the artistic fulfillment that would have been harder to achieve through mainstream Hollywood fare. Keanu's commitment to independent cinema was not a mere attempt to distance himself from commercial films or Hollywood's glitzy lifestyle. It was a genuine desire to expand his artistic horizons and to be involved in projects that resonated with him on a personal and intellectual level. Many actors in his position might have avoided smaller films for fear of being perceived as stepping back or losing commercial viability. But for Keanu, the focus was never on maintaining his image or keeping up with the pace of the Hollywood machine. Instead, he found creative satisfaction in working on films that were more experimental, less driven by commercial imperatives, and often more raw and personal. One of the standout examples of Keanu's embrace of the indie scene was his role in A Scanner Darkly, 2006, a groundbreaking rotoscope animated film directed by Richard Linklater. The film, based on a novel by Philip K. Dick, was an unconventional choice for Keanu, as it demanded a blend of cutting-edge animation and a stark, surreal narrative. A Scanner Darkly was not a film that was expected to have mass commercial appeal. Instead, it was a film aimed at a more niche audience that appreciated its thought-provoking themes of surveillance, addiction, and identity. Keanu's role as Bob Arctor, a man slowly losing his grip on reality, was a powerful, layered performance that showcased his ability to bring depth to complex, introspective characters. His performance, like the film itself, was anything but typical and earned praise from critics for its subtlety and depth. Keanu's participation in films like A Scanner Darkly was not a one-off foray into indie cinema. Rather, it marked the beginning of a series of projects that would further solidify his reputation as an actor willing to take risks and challenge himself. The Lake House, 2006, a romantic drama that required Keanu to showcase a more vulnerable side, was another example of his willingness to venture into genres that were a departure from his action-packed roles. While not as critically acclaimed as A Scanner Darkly, The Lake House still gave Keanu the chance to explore the emotional depth of his character and find resonance with audiences looking for more intimate, character-driven storytelling. Perhaps one of the most notable entries in Keanu's indie filmography came with Man of Tai Chi, 2013, a martial arts film that marked his directorial debut. Keanu's decision to direct a martial arts film was both a personal passion project and an opportunity to delve into the cultural and philosophical themes that had long fascinated him. The film, which blends action with philosophical underpinnings, is a perfect example of Keanu's desire to create films that were both artistically meaningful and physically challenging. While Man of Tai Chi did not receive widespread mainstream attention, it earned critical praise for its depth, its commitment to authenticity, and Keanu's ability to seamlessly integrate his martial arts training into the film's narrative. In addition to these individual performances, Keanu's involvement in smaller films offered him something beyond the accolades of traditional Hollywood filmmaking. Artistic fulfillment. Working in the indie circuit allowed him to collaborate with visionary directors, take on unconventional roles, and contribute to projects that prioritize creativity over commercial success. This was incredibly fulfilling for Keanu, whose focus was never just on the next paycheck or the next blockbuster hit, but rather on finding roles that challenge him as an artist and as a person. Critics have often praised Keanu for his ability to take on such a wide range of roles, from the philosophical and introspective to the action-packed and adrenaline-fueled. His ability to navigate between these worlds with such ease is a testament to his versatility and dedication as an actor. But perhaps what has truly resonated with both critics and audiences is the authenticity Keanu brings to every project, no matter how big or small. His participation in the indie scene allowed him to embrace roles that were more personal, more experimental, and more aligned with his values as an artist. Keanu's work in the indie circuit also contributed to his personal growth and his evolving sense of identity as an actor. He was no longer just the action star from Speed or the stoic figure from The Matrix. Instead, he was a multifaceted actor who could take on complex, layered characters in films that might not have wide commercial appeal, but were deeply meaningful to him. The critical acclaim that followed his work in indie films was not just about recognition from critics. It was an affirmation that Keanu had carved out a place for himself in the world of cinema that was uniquely his own. He was no longer beholden to the typical demands of Hollywood stardom, and this independence allowed him to flourish artistically. Moreover, Keanu's indie roles offered him a platform to explore the deeper, more philosophical aspects of his own life. Many of the indie films he chose to be part of were introspective and deeply reflective, which mirrored Keanu's own personal quest for meaning and understanding. His characters in films like A Scanner Darkly or The Lake House often faced existential questions, grappled with their own identities, relationships, and struggles, and this resonated with Keanu's own outlook on life. By taking on these roles, he was able to channel his own introspections and personal experiences into his performances, giving the audience a more authentic and raw portrayal of the human condition. For Keanu, the indie scene also provided a creative freedom that mainstream films could not. With the commercial pressures of Hollywood movies often focused on box office numbers and mass appeal, indie films allowed him to focus solely on the story, the characters, and the artistic vision. In this space, he could truly delve into roles that resonated with him, rather than simply playing a part that would satisfy the expectations of studios or audiences. This level of freedom, both creatively and personally, was a luxury that Keanu seemed to appreciate as he navigated his career. Ultimately, Keanu's shift to the indie film scene and the critical acclaim that followed marked a significant chapter in his career. It allowed him to redefine his identity as an actor, explore the full range of his abilities, and, most importantly, find fulfillment in the work that mattered most to him. The indie circuit became a place where Keanu could continue to grow, both professionally and personally, and it played a key role in his evolution into one of Hollywood's most respected and beloved actors, not just for his action roles, but for his thoughtful, diverse, and multifaceted approach to his craft. Yeah, still on Biography Radio, where today we're wrapping up the incredible journey of Keanu Reeves, a man whose impact reaches far beyond the big screen. Sure, we've all seen him in Bill and Ted, The Matrix, and John Wick, but Keanu's legacy? Oh, it's so much more than just those roles. He's become an icon, an embodiment of humility, authenticity, and heroism, earning him a special place in the hearts of millions. Now, think about this. Keanu didn't just play characters. He reshaped the way we view heroes. From the carefree, lovable Ted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to the intense, focused John Wick in, well, John Wick, his character spoke to fans across generations. And that's the key here. Keanu isn't just an actor, he's a symbol. He's defined pop culture in a way that most Hollywood stars could only dream of. But it's not just the roles he's played that make him so memorable, it's his presence off-screen. Keanu's known for being refreshingly humble, kind, and down-to-earth in a town that's all about the spotlight. He doesn't chase fame. Instead, he lets it come to him. And believe me, it does. But despite all that attention, Keanu stays true to himself. Quiet, genuine, and always generous. He's not out to play the Hollywood game. Instead, he's carved out a space where the game plays itself around him. It's almost like he's a quiet force in the middle of all the noise, staying grounded no matter what. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Keanu's game-changing role in action films. When you think of action heroes, what comes to mind? Probably someone loud, brash, maybe a bit invincible. But Keanu flipped the script when he brought John Wick to life. Sure, on paper, it looked like just another action movie. Explosions, car chases, you know the drill. But Keanu took it to another level. He added something that no one expected: depth, emotion, and this almost zen-like quality to the character. Suddenly, John Wick wasn't just about the action. It was about telling a story through every punch, every shot, and every moment of silence. And audiences, they were all in. What's even more extraordinary is how Keanu's legacy resonates across multiple generations. If you grew up watching The Matrix or Speed, Keanu was the epitome of cool, calm, and collected. But for today's younger generation, who probably discovered him through John Wick, they see a whole different kind of hero. Mysterious, yes, but also deeply emotional and human. And this connection across generations, that's a huge part of what makes Keanu's influence so special. He's able to evolve while staying true to who he is. And if there's one thing Keanu's redefined in modern cinema, it's heroism. Gone are the days of perfect, invincible action stars. Keanu's heroes, whether it's Neo, Jack Traven, or John Wick, are deeply human. They're flawed, they're vulnerable, and they face their struggles head-on. But in that vulnerability lies their strength. Keanu showed us that heroism isn't just about strength. It's about resilience, emotional depth, and a quiet determination to keep moving forward, no matter what life throws at you. Keanu Reeves, folks, is more than just an actor. He's a cultural force. He's reshaped how we think about stardom, heroism, and what it means to be an icon. And as we look back on his career, we realize that his legacy isn't just about the box office hits or the action-packed films. It's about his heart, his authenticity, and how he's inspired us all to be a little kinder, a little more real, and to embrace the things that matter most. Keanu's journey is far from over, and if we've learned anything, it's that his legacy is here to stay. Well, here we are, folks. We've come to the end of our journey through the life of Keanu Reeves, a man who, despite his iconic status, has always stayed grounded, humble, and, well, very real. And if you've been with us this far, you know that Keanu is so much more than just a Hollywood star. He's an embodiment of resilience, perseverance, and authenticity in an industry that often pushes the exact opposite. From his beginnings in Beirut, his childhood in Toronto, to that moment he stepped onto Bill and Ted stage. The same guy who made us laugh and cheer in Point Break and Speed has continued to redefine what it means to be a hero on screen. But what really sets him apart isn't just his action-packed roles. It's his heart. It's how, even the most action-packed fight sequences in John Wick, there's still that unmistakable sincerity that makes us root for him every time. Now, let's talk about how Keanu reshaped Hollywood, not just through his career, but through his life off-screen. The tragedies he's faced, the personal battles, and yet he's never let it break him. In a world where fame can distort your sense of self, Keanu Reeves has remained remarkably, well, himself. And that's why we keep coming back to him, not just in movies, but because he's a reminder that staying true to who you are, no matter how loud the world gets, is the real path to success. And it's not just the fans who've noticed. Over the years, younger generations, filmmakers, and even critics have seen something in Keanu, a refreshing kind of honesty that doesn't come around every day. He's revolutionized action filmmaking, and in a time when superheroes are everywhere, his role in the John Wick franchise proves that sometimes the most compelling hero is one who's not all flashy. He's just real. So what's Keanu's legacy? It's not just in the movies we love, but in the way he shaped how we view heroes on and off the screen. He's shown us that being a hero isn't about having superpowers. It's about being kind, authentic, and human. Even when life throws curveballs, he's not just a Hollywood icon. He's a global one, and his story continues to inspire people of all walks of life. And hey, If you enjoyed hearing about Keanu Reeves today, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more biographies on the legends who shaped our world. Who's next? Well, you'll have to stick around to find out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.